funny and crazy like that. And and the funny part of it is that he also admits, he says, yeah, I said that to Chi, and then I said they can't have nukes, and then he walked away. Or he said that America is no longer a superpower, the power is with the East, or whatever, whatever. And then like he comes out and says it. um, it's really interesting because there is this dichotomy of whether or not he's smart or dumb, and some people say he's smart, some people say he's dumb. And I think that his IQ is low, but he's told, like, those moves that appear to be smart by his followers or supporters or even people who are on the edge, is because he's being puppeteered, and all those moves that perhaps comes across as, wow, that was smart, or that move worked, or whatnot.
Hey, Doc, on that, Beatrice, the Thucydides, when she quoted that, the Greek philosopher, I know that went right over Trump's head. And I really believe that with all my heart. He still doesn't get it. And it's a major threat and a wake up call, but it's also a plea, it's a warning. It's like, hey, this is what's happening. Are you going to be bad or good in dealing with this? Do you know what I'm saying, right? I think it went right over Trump's head.
Yeah, that was crazy. Okay, just want to welcome Cyrus onto the stage as well. Cyrus, hope you're doing well. How are you? Cyrus, what's your thoughts about that? There's a lot of development today. We had three big pieces of news. What's your thoughts on them?
Hey, good evening, Suleiman. I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, a lot is going on. The 5-point plan that the U.S. pushed back on essentially shows that they even have more of a maximalist position than they've had prior. So there is no flex there, and this is just all a waste of time in my eyes. I mean, they might as well not even exchange these communiques because Iran's position is clear. The JCPOA proved that that's a culmination of 4 years of negotiations, and the Iran's position in Switzerland was not so far off where the JCPOA was. So I just don't understand why Trump makes these maximalist demands, knowing good and well Iran will not abide by it or even take it seriously. So for me, this is just an indication how Trump is genuinely stuck, and he has no real options. He's literally stuck between a rock and a hard place, and he's unable to disengage without losing face. So hence my long-standing prediction. This is a frozen conflict. Since the ceasefire began. Neither side really wants to get back into kinetic activity. There's been some new analysis. Some folks that I really respect, they're saying it actually would benefit Iran. It's the first time I heard it yesterday from someone I really respect. It would benefit Iran if the hostilities recommence. So that was an interesting take. So I've been thinking on that more. I'm not sure I buy into that yet, but in any event, Iran seems steadfast, and they are not at all blinking or at all seem under any kind of duress. They're ready for the long haul, and all the analysis is coming out that they can survive this for well over a year. They have the Caspian Sea corridor, they have the CIS corridor, and not to mention Pakistan, which those routes have been long standing. So I just don't foresee anything of substance or anything of consequence happening anytime soon. I think this will resolve when Trump and his cronies leave office, and hopefully we can get some real politicians in that actually care and are fighting for the American side of things, not Israel. As you see, APAC just dumped $11 million. I think maybe an additional 3 million. Some are saying like 14 million to defeat Thomas Massey. So this is a small Kentucky district, so that should tell you how rabid these pro-Israel hawks are, and how they want to silence any American that wants to disengage from our weird relationship with Israel, this weird obsession that they seem to have with each other. And so I think that era is coming to an end. It's a slow decline for Israel as far as their favorability in the United States. I think it'll be like a 10-year decline. Meanwhile, this is their last shot, so they're going to throw everything in the kitchen sink to try to get this war restarted and to try to somehow cause catastrophic damage to Iran. But for the reasons we noted before on your show, Suleiman, Iran can exact massive revenge on the GCC. So again, hence the stalemate. I think Iran would have done it. I mean, rather the U.S. would have done it if Iran couldn't really do substantial damage that is not acceptable to the U.S. And I'll end it there, Suleiman.
Appreciate that, Cyrus. Yeah, I've got a few more questions for you. Give me 2 seconds though. Doc, just want to welcome Doc as well. Dr. Tusa, Andrew Public. Sorry, you're just a bit of a thing trying to get through the different, when you end the stream and stuff, so it's a bit more harder point. Doc, I hope you're doing well. How are you? What's your thoughts? It does seem like Trump's beating the war drums again. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's Sunday before the market opens. So I'm probably taking a position that'll change Monday with some information that'll come from either side. I don't take seriously the threat any longer that we're going to have a resumption of hostilities in any meaningful way. I don't necessarily disagree with anyone who disagrees with me. We're all trying to opine on future events, and we don't know enough to really assess the risk of one thing or the other. In part because we're not part of those discussions, and also because of the fog of war and the pattern and practice of both sides in a war of skewing the news and the reporting in a way that benefits them. So I think consistently, though, Iran has been more open and honest about what their proposals are in the negotiations, uh, what their acts and reactions are going to be, depending upon what Israel, UAE, and America does. I don't think anyone has come forward and changed, at least in my mind, the difficult calculus that America and Israel, anyone else who wants to propagate war against Iran, has to meet to project military force in a way that would change Iran's stated goals and objectives. The geography, the interaction of America's traditional forces, their deep water navy, Iran's geography, their ability to withstand 47 years of sanctions. They're built for this. They're geared to this. They're acting, I think, relatively reasonably and I think understandably in their demands to have control or influence over the straits, to monetize it the way that America and Egypt did the Suez. And because they have the ability to control it, and there's nothing American can do that can change that. They don't have the military force to do it, and that's really damaged America in the sense that our perceived ability to protect ourselves and others and project power in support of our foreign policy goals has been shown to be a paper tiger. That's really hurt us in negotiations with China, and I think it's hurt the dollar writ large because the petrodollar is weakened by everything that's happened. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with what I've heard from Joa and Simon about the machinations of the global banking structure or the attempt to use this particular crisis to generate a change into not cryptocurrency, but the digital currencies in America and the rest of the world. I just think it's too chaotic a process to have that sort of plan be put into place over probably decades that we're now seeing now. And I'm referring to a conversation that I listened to a couple days ago, so that might seem out of context in terms of my comments. So I think this is going to just kind of bump along for a little while longer. Trump is starting to turn toward domestic political concerns more so than he is his attention, being focused on Iran and Israel and the conflict. I think you posted about it this morning or this afternoon, where everybody is, about Trump's continued agitation about the probable, I'll use the word probable, reelection of Thomas Massie. Thomas Massey, for those who don't know, is a congressman from the state of Kentucky. He was a huge Trump supporter in 2016 during his first election. I continued to support him and vice versa in the 2024 election. But when Massey started to call for accountability for the Epstein files, Trump turned on Massey like he has turned on so many other former supporters, including Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and condemned them with the worst sort of vitriolic attacks, childish attacks. And of course, he's got Marian Adelson and other Zionists, deep-pocketed billionaire Zionists, supporting the campaign of, I think his name is Ed Gillian, who's opposing Massey in the primary in the state of Kentucky. And the election is, a couple of weeks. And this guy that Trump is now supporting was a never Trumper, just like Ron Levin, just like Ben Shapiro, just like, some of the worst Zionists. They have only recently turned to support Trump and attack America First patriots like myself and Thomas Massey because of their support for Israel, the war, their funding of the genocide, and the racist religious attacks that are decimating the Middle East and have for decades. Something Trump promised Americans that he would stop doing, that he would pull out of the Middle East. And that was consistent with his rhetoric before he was a president. As a private citizen, of course, he got a lot of attention as a New York billionaire, captured the attention of the mainstream media and Boomer America with several TV shows. Forget the name of the particular show. And turn that platform into a basis for criticism, particularly of Bush and the first Gulf War. And that was one of the reasons why I supported him, because being educated by yourself and others in this space and on X, I came to understand the destructive nature of the neocon attempts to bring democracy into the Middle East, and complete disregard for their own cultures, their own government, and their own leaders. And I think primarily that was motivated by the desire to steal or to gain control and access of natural resources, including oil and gas. We saw Trump play that out in Venezuela, where he and the Department of War and Pete Hegseth all bragged about the fact that they've accomplished regime change. Well, they really haven't. I've mentioned this before, but the regime change in Venezuela consisted entirely of taking out Maduro, the top dictator, and leaving everyone else in place. And the only change for the Venezuelan people is America and Trump is taking their gold and oil and gas for their own benefit, and the Venezuelan people don't have anything. They have the same regime, the same government, the same restriction of freedoms and unrecognition of their property rights and natural resources of the country. So it was not an ethical or moral victory in any sense of the word. It was really sort of an extension of the neocon thinking that led to the first Gulf War, or the disposition of the Shah, or putting the Shah in the first place. So I'm pretty certain that Massey's going to win. And the reason I believe that is because Trump is attacking him so vehemently, and Trump and his support for Israel in the war is such a betrayal of what he promised his conservative base, that I don't see that his Trump's agitation against Massey will be successful. I think actually it's helping Massey win against this. This is currently the most expensive congressional race campaign in history. More money has been spent, almost all of it against Massey, by the Zionists in and out of our country, because he is calling for a retraction of America from the Middle East and to focus on problems for Americans and America first. Massey won his reelection in 2024 with 95% of the registered Republicans. Trump won his presidential race in 2024 in that same district with only the support of 65% of Republican voters. So Massey is much more popular than Trump. And I'm here to say that I believe Massey will win. I know that's somewhat of a controversial opinion among some. And it's inherently it's because Trump is so much more unpopular than he was in 2024. And Massey's popularity, I don't think, has been affected by these insane attacks by Trump against Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene and others who initially supported Trump because Trump was going to be America first, not Israel first. So I do think that this thing is going to have to wind down. I see that there are some signs. I read recently, I don't know if it's true, and I'll listen to the news and when I stop ranting here, what you have heard or others have heard about Trump apparently in reaction to the latest proposal by Iran has said that that Trump will allow some enrichment of uranium. I think it was under 4%. I don't know that changes anybody's opinion about a final settlement. It seems that it's mostly about money right now, whether or not Iran will be paid reparations for the damage done by America and Israel and UAE against its cities and its infrastructure, or whether they'll be allowed to collect a fee for passage through the straits, which they absolutely can control, and that's been demonstrated over the last 45 days. So thanks for the question. Happy to sit in the space and listen to other people's opinions on the news that comes.
Appreciate you as always, Doc. Great thoughts and great points. Dr. Atusa, thanks for joining us. What's your thoughts? Do you think this escalates, or do you think this is kind of Trump just again screaming out like he has for the last 40 days?
Hi, Soli. Honestly, I think even if there is or there would be a escalation, I don't believe it's going to be to the degree that it was before. And I agree with, I guess, some of the other speakers or yourself and people who you've interviewed that they say it could look like trying to grab some of the enriched uranium, and whether or not to grab a little or a lot, they will call that a victory. Because at this point, and I've listened to a lot of the military experts that you interview, and they all agree that there is not much that can be done unless they want to bomb civilian infrastructure and kill a bunch of people. That's going to jeopardize his popularity and also the international community against him. And so so I do not believe there would be a massive escalation, but like I said, maybe something minimal. Now the aircrafts that are leaving the Middle East, could that be a sign that they're actually trying to reduce military presence in the Gulf states, because they don't foresee any successful military action against Iran in this conflict? I know that some people believe that because they, basically took what they needed to take there. I know they're just leaving so that the aircrafts aren't, hit by Iran in the future escalation. I don't see that as the highly likely possibility. Partly it's kind of instinctual for me, and partly because of all these dragging his feet, Trump. There has to be a reason for them to drag it out and then go meet with China and basically beg that they can do something about it. And I bet that the Chinese definitely don't want this war to continue. And I'm sure they've expressed that to Trump. Yeah. So I landed there.
Yeah, I think Dr. Tusa, in terms of the military movement, what they do is when they move assets out is because they don't want them to be hit, close to Iran. So they did that before the 12-day war. They did it before the 39-day war as well. So it could be more likely it's because of that, but then that means the strike's imminent. So that's the issue you see, and I'm not sure if it is.
Mhm. So I do see that. Now, all these random hits on Israel and UAE, if we can say that that's a false flag to start the war, so my question is, how come nobody has come out to say, well, except for UAE, that okay, it could be Iran or their proxies, etc. But what about the US? Have you heard anything from the US officials saying that, oh yeah, for sure this is Iran or their proxies or Israelis, to come out and say that? Because in the past there is that sort of pattern, right? Something is hit, and even if Iran denies it, US and Israelis will say no, it was Iran, blah, 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 and then there is an escalation. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's going to be escalation. I just can't figure out when. Because, I mean, I did read reports earlier that actually they were planned to strike last weekend and then pulled out last minute. So this is the problem. Like, they're always about to plan and then they pull out. They've done this a few times. So it's hard to basically figure out when they're actually going to start the war or start attack. But yeah, I do think that it's going to become kinetic. I do think the war's going to escalate. Just a matter of time and when it is. Because Trump's stuck. I mean, the other possibility is he just makes a deal. But will he make a deal? I just don't think he will. And the issue you've got is, even after he goes kinetic, I don't see how he would get a better deal than before. So it makes no sense.
Exactly. That's exactly. So I don't believe there would be an agreement. I agree totally, 100%. But as Cyrus said, maybe it will be just a stalemate for now, for a couple of years, and but there wouldn't be necessarily a continuous kinetic situation. I don't see any agreement. Like, remember how during the initial stages of the sort of negotiations, some of us were saying, well, we think that Iran could do better and they shouldn't concede on like this and that. So I think that Iran really was hoping that there would be an agreement. Of course, they had, removal of sanctions. Iran would control the Strait of Hormuz and charge for it, et cetera, et cetera. And the US didn't want to budge at all. And in any negotiations, you go to negotiate, you got to give some, you're going to take some, But that wasn't the attitude from the beginning. So it was kind of clear that there just can't be an agreement. Iran is not going to reduce its nuclear facilities to just one facility. There is no way they would do that. But they were willing to enrich to lower percentages. That was, a great win for the US. Instead of the 60% to go to 3.6 or whatnot. So I don't see where a kinetic war could gain for the US. I just don't know how they can have calculated that option, because the Gulf states are going to be hit really hard, I believe. Yeah, I mean, we've seen how it happened in the past. And if there is no agreement, so what about the Gulf states that are expecting the US to defend them? And so, yeah, it could be just a situation that is going to just remain as is, until someone else comes to the office and changes the scenario. Yeah, I don't see an agreement, as you said. I agree, in terms of the negotiations.
Yeah, let's see. I just want to thank Roberta with a super chat. Thank you, Roberta, for your super chat. Where's it gone? Andrew, I wanted to come to you. Andrew, obviously you don't. What's your thoughts on the kind of military buildup that's occurring? Do you think this is going to go to war? Do you think he's just talking? Because he has been saying the same thing, same rhetoric for like 40 days as well.
Yes, I know it's difficult for a lot of the listeners and folks on the panel, but since we go back almost 79 days, 2 days before the first kinetic interface, you clearly stated it'll be any moment within 24 days or any time, 48 hours, 24 hours. We got a lot of pushback, but I was with you 150%. I said within 48 to 24 hours, we will see a military intervention, and we did. And it was like, oh wow, we really got that right. But it was most obvious, and we're in the exact same situation militarily. It's most obvious there will be a strike. We have a preponderance of military evidence. We have a preponderance of geopolitical evidence, and we also the economic analysis. It's all there. It's very clear. But I think all of us are in agreement. There will not be a massive ground invasion. That's impossible, literally impossible. But there will be a strike, an attack, a shock and awe type of a fireworks kind of blow some stuff up, and there may be very well an incursion of some sort of insertion. I really don't believe with all my heart it will be a marine amphibious insertion into one of the islands. I honestly, if it happens, okay, I'll admit I'm wrong, but I don't see it. It's impossible because that would be a pure suicide mission. And any military commander that would follow those orders, they need to be, honestly, they need to be removed to command, and they will be eventually, I believe, someday held in a terrible situation in military tribunal of being it's unfathomable. It's unthinkable to put your men and women into harm's way like that to pure suicide mission. I mean, it's unfathomable. But so yeah, we will see military strike. It's going to happen, and I agree with you, Suleiman. Again, I called it last weekend. I'm calling it here maybe tonight midnight. It's getting to be a little bit like, whoa, I'm wrong again, but I think it's going to happen. I really do. And then everyone says there won't be a deal, there can't be a deal. Well, come on, please, let's stop here. We have to understand in all the history of humanity, there's always a deal that's worked out. Now, that deal, even if it takes a year, 2 years, 6 years, 5 years, like the Paris Peace Accords, it'll still be a deal worked out. It'll be hammered out, but eventually, and I agree with Simon 150%, it's all in this global order of this new multipolar world that we're in. It's all going there. The Agenda 2030 plan that Beatrice called out. I think she was the first. Sorry, Suleiman, I got to say it. Beatrice called it out. She is we're all part of the more resistance. But no, we'll see that new plan laid out.
Fake
Other than
news.
that,
Was it day 2 or day 3? I said, guys, I've got a really weird
3.
thing.
It's day 3. I have the transcript right here. I'll read it.
I literally said that. I said,
You
don't
did?
that I'm a conspiracy theorist, but I just think this is linked to everything that's happening to us, the Iran war. And it was literally day 2 or day 3. And I said it.
Day 3, it was Greenwich Mean Time. I use also Universal Time, UTC. It was 0500. And you made the first comment on it. You clarified it on day 4. At the GMT, it was 1742. And I have it here in the transcripts. Yes, ma'am.
Say, chicks, not be crazy, Suleiman. You know what I mean? We are the moral resistance, aren't we, Andrew?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. But we did lay it out, and it's clear. I think it's really clear at this point, and it really is. And then, real quick, I just want to go back on day before yesterday. I was having some problems with my service, and I'm lining that up. But can I make a real quick, super fast comment on Richard? Is it Medhurst? Medhurst?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm still studying that. And that young man is brilliant. That's some pretty stunning things that we can't forget. That Trump's madness, and I certainly don't think he's intelligent, but he knows how to put his little peons in motion. But he's he's in this NWO. But I think the U.S. is really pulling some stuff with this oil, maneuvering the United States Navy to be the pirates of the world, and it's disgusting. But the United States Navy can and will at any given point control any choke point in the world. And I think that's going to be also into play. The blockade's not going to go away. I don't see that going away anytime soon. I really don't. So this is going to really drag on in that regard. And, but, and I'll leave it here, I'll get off here. The global impact, I now believe with all, I see it clearly, we see it. If this goes, which I believe it will, a few more months, we're looking at a global, not a recession, but a depression here. I see this getting really dark globally, financially, and so I'll go ahead and land it there.
By design, though, right, Andrew? The
Yes,
global
that's what,
impact by
yes, ma'am.
design.
That's what goes back into all this. You can't plan this train wreck. It's got to be a plan. How can it be other than that? And I'm not. I know people are going to say stop blackpilling. Okay, I'll stop. I'll leave it there.
I just got some statement by Trump as well while we were doing the interviews. Let me read it to you. It's about Thomas Massey. Remember, his election is on Tuesday. I do think it's huge because APAC now has spent, I believe they've gone up to 20 billion on the other candidate. So a lot of funding of the other side. But this is what Trump had to say. He said, third-rate Congressman Thomas Massey, a weak and pathetic rhino from the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, a place I love, and won big 6 times, including all primaries, must be thrown out of office ASAP. He is the worst Republican congressman in history, voting against tax cuts, the wall, law enforcement, and in favor of the transgender mutilization of our children, men playing in women's sports, and so many other horrible things. The incredible people of Kentucky's 4th Congressional District gave us a mandate to make America great again, and the person that will help us do that is Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, and 5th generational Kentucky farmer, Captain Ed Gallerin, a true American first patriot. A brave combat veteran, Ed knows the wisdom and courage required to defend our country, support our military veterans, and ensure peace through strength. Additionally, as a very successful businessman, Ed knows how to create jobs, cut taxes and regulations, promote made in the USA, support our amazing farmers and agriculture, unleash American energy dominance, and champion our nation's golden age. In Congress, he will fight tirelessly to keep our now very secure borders secure, top migrant crime, and defend our always under siege Second Amendment. The people of Kentucky are wise to Massey. He only votes against the Republicans, makes life very easy for the radical left. Unlike lightweight Massey, a totally ineffective loser who has failed us so badly, Captain Ed Gallerin is a winner who will not let you down. Election day is Tuesday, May 19th. Vote for Ed Gallerin. He has my complete and total endorsement. Make America great again. So that's a huge tweet in order to push the opposition of Massey. People are saying they're looking into this Ed guy, and there's actually not much out there about him. He's not willing to debate. He's not been willing to do interviews. He's riding on the whole APAC money and the whole Trump promotion. Doc, what's your thoughts on that?
Just while Doc finds his mic, I see that Trump's actually endorsing Massey, because the minute he says that he endorsed the other guy, the in America that he knows the other guy is set up for failure. You know what I mean? He knows that. Trump's not stupid. He knows how toxic his brand is with all the things he's been doing and saying. And it sounds crazy what I'm saying, but you know what I mean?
I think you described it well yourself at the end. At the end of the day, if Trump,
I don't think that's true. Didn't the Ohio person that he endorsed recently win?
Against who?
Whoever the Ohio person was that he endorsed.
Gigi, but you don't know the name of the Ohio person. You don't know who they won against. Like, was it a tough competition? Did he come out? Or was it just an endorsement as he does for any candidate? I'm talking specifically about this case.
I didn't know I had to be that specific, but hold on. I'll look it up.
Well, it is about I'm talking about this instance. I'm not saying he does that every time.
Yeah, another thing, Beatrice, I see your point is it will work against him, backfire, because Doc said earlier that there's a massive push. People are, I guess there's a huge populist movement behind Massey, of course. So I think what you're saying, right, Beatrice, when Trump comes out and says those bad things, it'll work against him, right?
Absolutely. You endorse the other guy in this current climate. and say, I'm endorsing the other guy. I'm the most, like, my polls have been lower than anybody else's. You know, I took you to war, I did all of this and all of that, and I'm endorsing the other guy. Of course, it's going to work against them. And I think Trump knows that, but doesn't really
Well,
care.
it's going to be a huge loss for Trump after he got Marion Adelson and other Zionist billionaires to put in far more than $20 million to run against Massey. Massey's spending a fraction of that. But if Trump loses or Trump's candidate loses, it just shows how weak Trump's ability to endorse candidates is. Candidates running for the election, the reelection in November, are going to walk away from him. This is a huge deal. That's why so much money is going in to defeat Massey.
Doc, did you heard Suleiman's question, right? Were you there? Were you just, before you open your mic, you heard the whole question, right?
Um, well, I thought general discussion was the viability of Massey's, ability to win the election or the primaries, which is happening here.
If you read Trump's
Yeah,
statement,
yeah, no, I
basically,
heard Trump's
Doc.
statement. I had read it before I came into the
Yeah.
space, and that's one of the reasons why I commented on it. Is Trump is being forced to turn his eyes toward his domestic concerns, his political popularity, his ability to endorse candidates that will win. He's generally weakened the entire Republican Party. He's giving Democrats talking points. Democrats now are, overtly concerned about the Epstein files and the victims that were generated by those pedophiles. And Massey and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they were original Trump supporters. Trump got legislation through Congress 2016 and 2020 in large part because of the Freedom Caucus, which was those two congressmen, Matt Gaetz and like 9 others, who, because they worked together as Caucus members as part of the Republican Party in Congress, but because the division between the Democrats and Republicans were so close, even 10 conservatives could make a big difference. And Massey continued to hold that power when he and a couple other congressmen forced a vote that led to the bill that Trump was forced to sign because he couldn't avoid signing a bill that required the government to demand the release of the Epstein files from court files. And so that's everything that's come out would not have come out but for Thomas Massey and a few others. So this was the original basis for Trump to attack Massey, one of his original supporters. Again, for me, that gives weight to my opinion that Trump is compromised by the Epstein files. And I'll make this point again because no one else seems to make it. The files that were released, one, were only came from the Justice Department. They were part of the 2 criminal prosecutions against Maxwell and Epstein and all the civil suits that victims brought. All that information had been sealed by the courts, and the Justice Department had those files. Because of Massey's bill to release the Epstein files, what Trump was forced to do, and we've lost a couple people, in the government who supported that. What's her face? Tulsi Gabbard has been a key figure in forcing the release of this and other related information that the deep state has tried to hide for really decades. And so Trump's gone after the fact that, these people who supported the release of the Epstein files. Now, all we have is a small portion, and we only have a portion of what the Justice Department held. We don't have the files from the FBI. The FBI went in to the townhouse, the New Mexico ranch, and to St. Andrews Island and took possession, and they acknowledged, which they had once upon a time, of hundreds, if not thousands, of photographs and videotapes. And those have never been released. And the release of those documents should have been accomplished if Trump or the Justice Department and the Attorney General paid any attention to the law. But it's been obfuscated that, we only released the Justice Department files, and those are the Epstein files. And no one looks beyond that. There's a massive amount of information that's still out there. Trump has said repeatedly that he's been cleared by the release of the files that have been released. There's nothing in there. Well, it's like a small portion of what the government has. So
And
whether
they're all redacted anyways.
yeah, and yeah, and there. Well, see, that's what happened. Is the Justice Department? Those were the Justice Department files that were released. They went to the FBI for redaction, and even files that were redacted that were released once upon a time were pulled back off of the Justice Department and the FBI websites, and people have captured those, and they're wondering, well, why is this document once released now no longer available? Well, it's because the release hurt some of, as Trump framed them, some of Trump's friends. So, I mean, the corruption is so deep. We've known in this country that the intelligence community have been blackmailing and even murdering, assassinating our leaders because they're the constant presence in Washington, D.C. It's not a congressman who gets elected for 2 years, and it's not a president who gets elected for 4 or 8 years. 8 years in the context of the plans and of the deep state in any number of areas is unaffected because those bureaucrats don't go anywhere. They just perpetuate themselves. And as Solly was saying the other day, they go from the government into private contractors, and from private contractors back into the government or back into the political positions. And it's the same cycle, corrupt cycle that's in effect leading our country right now. And Trump, once upon a time, might have been that change agent. I believed he was. That's why I supported him. I didn't think he was going to continue any wars in the Middle East. And he pulled a hokey doke on us. Yeah. So just another politician.
Yeah, absolutely, Doc. And listen, guys, there's a lot of people, there's quite a few people in the chat below. There seem to be MAGA supporters crying about the panel, and they seem to be thinking that Iran has lost and never take on America, and America's always going to be victorious. If you've got an opinion, bottom left on your screen is a mic button. Request a mic, will bring you up. These people are all courageous on our panel. They're sharing their thoughts and opinions. You're getting the chance to listen to it. If you agree or disagree, come on up. There's no point sitting and crying in the frigging comments. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, people did vote for Trump. People did support Trump. But then that's courage when they realize that Trump broke his promises. They're not stupid. You know what I mean? When someone breaks the promise that they made to you, you're going to call them out. And that's courageous, and that's the right thing to do. If you think Trump never broke any promises, come on up. Let's hear it. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Cyrus? Sorry, Andrew, jump in.
Yeah, real quick. Sorry to jump. I want to hear what Cyrus has to say on that. But real quick, yesterday, I was attending this function, and there was a gentleman, hardcore Trump MAGA zombie Zionist. He was like, but here's the point. He heard some background about me, and he cautiously kind of was trying to fill up my thoughts on it. And I was very kind. I didn't jump on him or anything. And we kind of were feeling each other's thoughts out. And I just want to make this point. We have to understand that the MAGA cult, they are so deeply, heavily brainwashed. And when I wish I had a better word other than brainwashed, but they literally are blind, totally blind to facts. So I'm just going to land with this real quick. All I could say was, if we really look at the evidence, but see what our evidence is, they will take that as you could walk up to a person who's blind, who is getting ready to cross the street, and there's cars coming, and say, sir, stop, there's a car coming. They can't see it. It's literally like that. I'm convinced, Beatrix, it was really scary. The guy was just blind to facts. So that's what we're dealing with here.
They're still stuck in the matrix, and they depend on the mainstream media. They don't do any independent assessment or listen to alternative voices. they're propagandized into that way of thinking. And yes, you can, I think, correctly characterize it as being brainwashed. The problem is for these people that they also fall, the influencers fall into the money trap of continuing to support someone who's paying them. And we see that with Mario, we see that with Nick Sorter, we see that with others that Sully and I and Khaleesi, as hosts for years now, have seen the transition from the principal positions they took that put them in a position where they had an audience and they had the ability to influence, and then they sold out. Right. And Nick Sorter, most people won't know who he is, but those of us who do know will understand exactly what's happened. We understand exactly what's happened with Mario. So you have a group of influencers who have just sold their soul. And so they resonate with the mainstream media in their desire and ability to propagandize the general public, who only comes in every once in a while and checks in on what's happening and believes what they're told without qualification or question. And those are the sheep. That's the big part of the flock. But we see that the diminishing ability of the mainstream media and even these influencers to control the narrative, because there are too many people like us, in spaces like this one, and particularly this one on the question of the Iran war, that are speaking the truth in a way that cannot be contested factually. So I think that X continues to be a very valuable space for all the restrictions that it places on our particular brand of content. All three of us, Sully, Khaleesi, and I, once upon a time were monetized, and that all got taken away, and our accounts have been shadow banned for years because of what we're saying. And I don't blame the people, and we shouldn't blame the people like the person you were speaking to, Andrew, for their inability to see through the matrix, to see through the haze, to see the truth of exactly what's happening. But as this continues, and the economic devastation that's already happened and that will continue to grow if the straits are not opened in any short period of time, that more and more people will start to question the rhetoric of Trump and others who say everything's fine, we're doing great, America,
Just
yay,
some
yay,
breaking
yay.
news, Doc. I was waiting, but I'll give it back to you in a second. So Trump just posted on Truth Social an image, and basically he's threatening to invade Iran. So a physical ground invasion. We also have a statement from. So that's huge news. Obviously, he's posted a picture of Iran being ground invaded from all directions. And then the second one was Marjorie Taylor Greene said, if you send in US military troops in Iran, there is going to be a political revolution in America. We are done. We said no more foreign wars, and we meant it. The coalition will unite and be unstoppable. I'll make sure of it. End this war. It's stupid. Sorry, back to you, Doc. That was breaking news.
I was wrapping up, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is a congresswoman who stood shoulder to shoulder with Matt Gaetz and Thomas Massey and others in their initial support for Trump among the Republican Party. Trump, wasn't a Republican and wasn't accepted in 2016 through 2020. He was actually hostily dealt with, because he chose people to pick his staff and administrative heads and agency heads who really were not had no interest in supporting Trump's agenda. So Trump sort of bent over to those interests, to the neocons, and those of us like Marjorie Taylor Greene gives voice to it when Trump is trying to promote a boots on the ground war, meaning he's going to send American boys, your sons, your nephews, your husbands, your fathers, off to war to die for another war that he promised would never happen when he became elected. So he can post all these memes that he wants. And one of the memes that I found particularly offensive, he posted last week, which is there's a very, very famous World War II character that was used to promote Americans to join the army in the World War II effort, and it's a character of Uncle Sam, and Uncle Sam with his top hat and red, white, and blue, and his red, white, and blue outfit, pointing his finger strictly at the camera, saying, "I want you for the U.S. Army." And Trump posted the same thing with Trump pointing the finger, not saying I want you, but the connection was quite clear. And when you understand, as so little or so few Americans do, that Trump recently has changed the registration requirements for all American men to register for selective service, which is register for the draft. And here he is now, a month or two later, basically promoting the idea of a draft as a patriotic effort consistent with what was done in World War II. And people are just not going to buy it. Just not going to buy it. I agree that if Trump tries that, there will be, I won't say a revolution, but there will be a very, very strong anti-war movement, the same way there was during Vietnam.
Yeah, totally agree, Doc. I think we'll see Vietnam 2.0. I think the campuses, universities, and then even the mainstream group will populace will rise up and really say enough's enough, because the middle class, the working class, have always supported the war effort, especially if they start seeing their beloved loved ones come home in body bags. The same thing happened in Vietnam. And also, it was disgusting. Trump had that AI image of him on a ship, a warship, with an AI admiral, a U.S. Navy admiral. It was a vice admiral by the rank in the uniform, but it was so disgusting that the uniform that the person, this admiral, is wearing is not even, those insignias. I looked at the rank insignias and the warfare insignias. It was some bizarre, it's not even United States Navy warfare insignias. And I'm thinking, what in the world is this maniac doing? And it's like, I'm leading the way and I got this admiral's got my back. Yeah. No, the military needs to really start. I think we're going to see more military officers resign or be fired too. I think we're going to see a lot of that more happening.
Well, if he starts to give the order for boots on the ground, yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think we've already seen some pushback from the Joint Chiefs, if you believe the rumors that Trump wanted access to the nuclear codes, and the Joint Chiefs chairman basically said no. And they have the ability to disobey the commander in chief if they believe it's an unlawful order. They'd be subject to prosecution in the military code of justice, but at a minimum, they probably would be leaving the service at that point at with their own desire and at Trump's request. And we've seen that. We've seen how many generals, including the chief chaplain, right?
Yeah,
The
there's
chief
40
chaplain, the
some
general,
significant ones. Yeah.
yeah, that are gone. And, the chief chaplain is objecting to the anti-Catholic sort of rhetoric that's been going on, and the brainwashing of the general staff. Again, Pete Hegseth, I don't know what it was, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, called in, every one of the general staff to Washington D.C. And apparently, Andrew, I know Andrew knows more about this than I do, but basically, read them the riot act on the need to support for Israel and the Zionists. So, and to point the finger at the Pope and the Catholics as being somehow anti-American, even though we have, our First Amendment and our protections for all religious faiths. The government is absolutely not entitled to favor one religion over another. But that's exactly what we're doing. We're we're favoring the Jewish culture over the people and the culture and the religion of America and Americans traditionally.
Yeah,
So
huge.
it's bad. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah, that's major. And real quick, I'll just say that's huge, major, major, major. That a lot of people went right over their heads. For them to single out one religion within Christianity, without that is a major, complete violation of the both Navy of not Navy but military law, a uniform code of military justice of our very constitution we're based on, but also it causes deep lines of division within the military ranks. I don't want to. I could go on for hours on that, and then that ties in exactly with the humiliation ritual at Quantico, Virginia, when they literally told a military that's supposed to be apolitical that they are political. They will be in the Trump cult, and they made it clear. And if you don't like it, don't let the door hit you in the ass on your way out. FAFO, it was the most disgusting, humiliating, disgusting thing I've ever heard in my life. And I talked to other military officers that I have been one for 50 years. I've known this man. He's a great, great man. And I said, what is going on? Is it just me? And he's like, no, brother. He said, what we're seeing is unprecedented. So yeah, we're in unprecedented times, folks. We are in unprecedented times, and the young folks don't see it. They really don't. But the ones that are older that have been through it, we're seeing it. And that's why I thank Stock for weighing in, and and Suleiman, your great, great work, and Beatrice, all thank you. I don't know how you keep going. But you do. Please support Suleiman's work, everyone. Repost these spaces and go in and watch those videos. And I'm serious. There's now a massive library that Suleiman has built, and I'm behind on Substack. I haven't even gone through his Substack stuff yet. Enough his articles.
David, thanks for joining us. Hope you're doing well. I don't want to say Russia's being destroyed because they've been going through a lot of pain and suffering this 24 hours. So it feels awkward saying something like that. David, what's going on? There's been a lot of attacks, a lot of drone strikes in Moscow. I've seen apartment buildings being hit.
Et tu, Brutus, huh? Et tu, Brutus. The big fire that you're seeing from X is actually a paint shop that went up on fire. The one that's next to a building underneath an overpass. That's a paint shop. They did get some drones through. No infrastructural damage, spurious damage. 3 people were killed, including 2 children, I believe, is the latest statistic. So that's just how Ukraine works. When they can't get at you, they commit terrorist activities and go indiscriminately bombing the civilian areas. But I was just going to come in relation to, I know everyone wants to say that Russia is, it is a slap to the face, like a glove, 18th century glove, and meet you for pistols in the next morning. But it's an insignificant, a slap to Russia, completely insignificant. And as we know, the last couple of days have been very powerful. Some of the strongest words have come out of people that we never thought that they would say it, as including what Daniel Davis did with Dmitry Polyansky, that said that diplomacy is now over. But in relation to Iran, I mean, just a general viewpoint from Russia is that Trump is going to go to war. That this war is only in its infancy. That the way America is this is not about deflecting Epstein files or other. This is about Russia is having a bankruptcy cascade effect that it must deflect, and war is the way to do it. And war has been used for many a long time to change patterns and courses. It was that fella, that Austrian painter with the little half Thomas Magnum mustache in the 1930s, that was funded by the Brits and America in order to generate an army to go after Russia. That was the point of his rise, that Russia needed to be taken down. And here we are again, of course, trying to take down Russia, and it has not worked. But Russia's viewpoint is that, this war is going to continue. And I've been justifiably proven right since the start of this, indeed, since June of last year, because I'm not some sage that these apparitions are coming to me in the middle of the night. This is what the Russians have been saying since well into 2024 in relation to Iran, and especially the 12-day war, that this war with Iran is made to destabilize BRICS because America is bankrupt. When you had one of the head economic advisors to Vladimir Putin come out in November of last year, and I posted that news conference that he did. I got millions of posts, by the way, or views, I should say, where he said that a war is coming and it's been used to devalue the American currency and reconstitute the debt and to make a lot of people in a lot of pain. And this is exactly where we're going. If you look at any of the top journalists in Telegram, again, the onus has changed back to Ukraine, believe it or not, but it's still 50-50. The 50% of the news in Russia, even though they are at war with everyone in NATO, including as one of the main journalists today has just posted, they're also at war with Starlink, with Elon, because it seems all those drones you're talking about all have chips on them with the smaller Starlink panel in them, and that's the only way they're able to do it, because without Starlink they cannot transit Russian space, because they do not have GPS in Russia. They have their own internal systems, so they need Starlink to do it. And there's a lot of angry Ruskies currently, sitting in cigar-filled, vodka-drinking rooms at the moment, venomous about what's going on. It is getting worse. I mean, it really is to the point where they're going to break, and break badly. But the discourse within the Russian military is that they are helping to reconstitute, as has been proven. I think with the report that you even stated, that Iran is now back officially in Western media to 90% what they were before they started. But the Russians are saying, sorry guys, you may add another 50% of that. The Iranians are well above 100% from what they were back in February. How is that? Well, China and Russia have supplied quite significant quantities of technology and help and aid to Iran. And they now have a vested military interest in taking over the Gulf. And that's where they are. So yeah, the Russians are of the belief that this is going to go further, and they're well prepared. And this is some of the negative connotations that are coming against Russia. Why are you looking so weak in Ukraine? Why are you not doing ABC? The people are frustrated. For a simple reason is, as Colonel Davis just did on his podcast yesterday when I was talking to him before it, that the Russians are putting 90% of what they manufacture into storage. They are preparing themselves, as Rostec described it back in November 2023, when the counteroffensive was going on with Ukraine that failed, that we need to prepare for war against NATO. So we are only in the infancy stage of what we are going to see. We have Russia diplomats, high advisors, guys that were, including Karaganov, who was advising not only Brezhnev and Gorbachev, and a little bit of Putin up until 2013. Him and his cartel of guys are advising directly and indirectly that the time has come to take the gloves off. But Russia Putin, I should say, is standing back and looking, well, that's easy to say and do, but we have Iran to worry about, we have the BRICS narrative to worry about, but Russia at the moment is a fantastic financial benefactor of what's going on. They've doubled their revenue income in oil and gas. They've reconstituted, rebuilt, and have them a massive 400,000 extra workers now in the oil and gas industry. And I just coming back, Andrew mentioned Richard, to the point I made last night or the night before. The numbers that Richard mentioned are wrong. Russia is now producing 1.6 million barrels a day more tonight, than what they were just 6 months ago. And their prospects is to go a lot further than that, up into double figures. So I'm just giving you from Russia's journalists and the main military advisors, and that's what they are saying. Now, some people like Stanislav, who you've had on, he sees it almost to where I do, and almost where a lot of guys. He is more standoffish, but he sees there's a massive frustration. If you ever have them on again, there's a massive frustration in relation to. All right, great. In relation to, because I asked him that question, and Colonel Davis did as well. He said that yes, there is a problem. He emphasized there's a problem in that there's the military cadres within the Kremlin, the conservative element, the hawks, if you wish to say that, who are rightly pissed off, isn't the best term, that Putin is not throwing the hammer down. And that hammer is targeting military logistics manufacturing in Romania, Poland, and maybe some parts of Germany. That's how far they're going with conventional weaponry, by the way, not this talk of nuclear, because Rostec, aka the Pentagon, do not believe that Article 5 will happen from America. The Russians don't care about England, as I said, in France. The French will turn tail and get back up into their shell. The Brits don't have anything to throw anywhere. That's just simple. But there's coming a point now whereby, as much as what Putin would like to follow his advisors, the hawks that he grew up with, Putin's statement that when you're in a fight or when you perceive that a fight is about to come to you, you strike first. That's I think there's a big video clip of him saying that's been used for the last several years. But this is a little bit more than punching a guy on the nose and taking out his teeth and sending him to the dentist. This is about engaging militarily, with 22 countries in Western Europe. But it's coming very close to it. But I would say, and Alexander Kotz was saying it, that, if Iran was not in the picture, Russia would have done it already. If this war was not in the picture, and he voiced that this is intentional, that this incursion with Iran is a multi-placed war to destabilize BRICS, destabilize Russia, because they failed in Ukraine. And this is exactly it. And I think when your best mate Mario was having an interview with Davis the other day, and I do try to tell them, Suleiman, but my opinion is falling on deaf ears with them all. The point is that Russia is in the belief that it must hold firm for the next 2 years, and that this is the top guys, and that they are well in a position militarily, to the point that this is you could say 1942 USSR Joe Stalin, where they brought all their manufacturing to 40 to 60% of the economy, and they built themselves up. So that is where Rostec is. That's the voice that's being used within the military circles, that we are happy to participate in the war in Ukraine, losing up to 100 men a day, which is horrific on the Russian side, and 10 times to 15 times more than that on the Ukrainian side. They're happy to do that because they know that a bigger war is coming. And they're not stupid. And they've seen it before, only 80 years ago. And I would state that, there's several thousand Russian advisors sitting in Iran at the moment, and they are helping Iran build up for what's coming. They're 100%, even General Abdel-Odnov made a statement 2 days ago to that effect. Again, very unusual for a Russian general of his standing to be saying such, but, he's allowed to do it because I think his boss is mostly Medvedev rather than Putin. He's allowed to say these points of view, but he is again voicing that America is coming at Iran, and they're going to come at us. If Iran loses, they'll come back at us. So it's in Russia's interest to make sure that Iran does not lose. Thank you, Suleiman.
Thanks for David. I know Joe, I hope you're doing well. How are you?
Doing good.
I know you disagree with David because I assume because you've got the similar position to Richard Medhurst, right?
It's not that I disagree. Well, to a degree, I have questions for David. 272 oil fields, oil refineries, oil depots, LNG depots. They have been hit by the Ukrainians, right? Long range, right?
No.
That's verified.
It's verified by the Kiev Independent, Washington Post, New York Times, BBC. So, no.
Oh, damn.
Well, I don't see how when you have satellite photos, though, David. Like I've actually seen, I've looked in this.
Look, the Western media is equivalent to when you were a small little lad and you're reading Hans Christian Andersen. I can't even go into to describe how many fables and fairies we've had to endure over the last 4 years talking about Russia. I mean, Putin must have had cancer about 25 times at this stage. And
I agree with you.
And let's not talk about the washing machines and the shovels and
how does America become the #1 LNG exporter if Russia was still had full production?
Well, Russia has gas pipelines.
Yeah. So why aren't they beating U.S. at exporting LNG?
I just said they have gas pipeline. Instead of the gas going into LNG facilities, they're putting it into gas pipelines. If you look at the figures just 2 days ago, I think I can get it up in the post. I did actually. I posted it out. Stanislav did as well, by the way. But they're now overproducing. I just said a few minutes ago, I don't know if you heard, Russian oil is now at 9.58 million barrels a day, 1.7 million more than what it was in November 25. Gas is up. So,
it is.
How many did you say? 247?
272 strikes
wow.
on oil fields,
I'm surprised
depots,
it's not,
and everything else.
I guarantee you by Tuesday it'll be 2,720.
I don't know. When you actually look at the shifting in the oil markets and where things are coming from, it is all radically shifting to the west. I honestly believe that they're trying to move everything to the west. That way, they get everything they want. Trump doesn't even need to be.
I use the line that all our friend Ben Shapiro uses for quite some time. Statistics don't have any feelings, and the statistics are stating quite clearly that Russia is ramping up production. It's proven. The money coming in is proven. And if you look at the statements come from the Russian Central Bank and the projections, you will see that, they're looking at a 42% increase for the balance of this year. What we're witnessing, you need to understand what a refinery is. Have you ever seen a refinery? I've seen two. I've seen two in Russia. There's one of them in Krasnodar. It's equivalent to 3,600 acres. That's the entirety of it. 3,600 acres. It's bigger than some cities back home in Ireland. And they hit maybe 2 or 3 of the storage facilities. And the thing is back up and running within 3 to 4 days. Like at this moment, I believe the last figure was, was it Tuesday, Wednesday last week? About 4.7% was damage done to Russian refineries and storage facilities. The big one happened in Tupaze, down in Krasnodar. I think we saw that, but that was environmental damage. The fire was out within 24 hours.
Yeah,
it was a meltdown.
I understand that they're not taken out, they're not taken offline.
No,
and that they're ramping up production because they do have. I mean, you have countries that are offline, like 20% of the world's LNG is offline now, and Russia will continue to increase, but they're doing nothing to stop these. It's like 1-2 jab. That's consistently
they are actually, because
and
on Thursday they sent 1,500 drones into Ukraine and with a 97% success rate, and they blew up everything. But you see, this is the same thing. They will magnify the Hans Christian Andersen storylines on negative to Russia. But when Russia, sends in the lads, Iskanders and 101s
negative
and 1,500 drones. Look, Joe, I've had to endure this for 4 years. Never mind the people back in Russia have had to endure it for 4.5 years, if not since 2015 when they first started this bloody war. It's just been negative. I just ignore it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you're just reiterating the same bullshittery that is coming out of Western media. And I've said this before in the space with Suleiman, that the redundancy level within the oil and gas infrastructure in Russia is huge. And what they're doing, I just said a minute ago, since January, they're now putting 400,000 extra direct workers in the oil and gas industry, to the point that they have a shortage of labor in Russia. Everyone wants to get involved. It's not the diamond mines up in Siberia, but everyone is getting paid. I think it's now gone to an extra 110% has just been offered for contracts going into the SMO. 110% salary increase. So Russia is doing quite well. I mean, the problem we have in the West, and I just include myself being Irish, the problem we have in the West, and I see it in BBC and my own Irish terrestrial media, is lies. It's convoluted lies.
David, I'm not
and you believing it.
No, I'm not repeating Western media. No one in Western media is saying that they're moving the energy corridor to the West, right? No one's saying that. Not a single Western media outlet is saying that, okay? And what I'm showing you is Nord Stream gets hit. That gets cut off. Russia's constantly for the past 2 years. Ukraine is not trying to hit military assets; they're hitting oil and LNG
Yeah, but
facilities.
with ill effect,
Right?
with
Hold on.
no
Let me
effect.
finish. Let me finish. I don't care if it's with an effect or not. You're showing that you're supplying Ukraine, and you have an objective, which is not to get out Russian military assets. It's to hit their energy. Why? Right?
With no effect.
Then you have a strait that's closed, right? That does have an effect. You hit South Pass, which for 20 years they've said if you hit South Pass, we're hitting Qatar, right? So it's just a trigger. They just go there and they trigger the event to happen, so that they retaliate. Why didn't they hit one of the other five LNG fields that Iran had that which wouldn't have caused this type of retaliation? Because they want it closed. America wants to be number one oil exporter. They want to be number one LNG exporter. They want the West to control
Well, they're ill-advised,
energy.
though.
But
They're
let
ill-advised.
me finish, David, please, and then you can jump in. Right? Elon Musk said in an interview a while ago that energy will be the new currency in 2027. If the energy corridor moves to the West, he is correct. Energy will be the new currency because now America controls the dominant global reserve and the oil. So no longer do they have a threat from Middle East of ever saying, "Hey, we're going to stop using the dollar." They'll no longer have that threat.
Well,
right?
that's
What does
incorrect.
this do? What does this do for Trump? This allows him to sell his stable coin like crazy. He'll be
Joe, the reason
make
to
billions.
do at the moment is the strategic reserve is being depleted. So the second that is gone, you're going to see a different face in that television. There is no export going to come when your strategic reserve is gone to zero. And that the Russians were laughing the other day when that post was made about Venezuelan barrels per day is doubled. Yeah, it'll double until someone puts a couple of man pads into that refinery or pipeline, and that's the end of it.
Well, until they do, they are going to double. And so is Argentina, which is the fastest growing oil field, and so is Brazil. And Mexico will come back online.
Argentina is going to take 10 years.
And Canada's starting to come back online already.
Wow. Argentina is going to take 10 years.
The Western Hemisphere has 33% of the world's natural fuel, like the oil and gas, right? But
that's exactly what we have to do here. America is going to become a continental superpower. It'll take North and South America. Good luck. But they've lost Africa and Asia and the Middle East.
Yes, I know. And Israel is no longer needed. It's no longer a forward operating base. And I think why Israel's doing everything it did is because it knows if it does not take out Iran and Iran's parties that are aligned with Iran in that region, Iran's done for, because then they're not going to be able to make a deal with Saudis and Dubai and everything else, and they're screwed. They're out. Right? There is no more forward America sending funds because they don't need it anymore. Right? So now they're trying to just wipe everyone out.
Did you ever hear of a thing called the petrodollar?
Everything fits. What?
The petrodollar is now gone, and when you're 43 trillion in debt with 127 trillion in derivatives that are coming due in the next 10 years, well, they're reconstituting it. I mean, the lands in the Persian Gulf are broke.
But this is how they're reconstituting it. The oil is basically you are making it so that U.S. dollar is now backed again. Okay, but now it's backed by the oil in the West. So you wind up saving the dollar, and then in order to trade it, they will have to be stable coins. So Trump's stable coin and all the other stable coins, that's going to be the biggest currency in the world, is going to be U.S. stable coin.
And that's exactly what the financial advisor said to Putin last November when he shocked everyone when he came out and said at a news conference that this war is being used to take out the U.S. dollar, use stable coins, and leave everyone hanging for their debt. Japan, most certainly. I mean, this is how it has to go.
But this is what I'm saying. Except in order
Hallelujah.
to do that, you need to control the energy so that you don't get screwed, right? Although American people are going to get screwed, but not the American elite. They won't get screwed, right? Because everyone in America is going to be going to the pump, and it's not going to affect certain people. Like I'm sure Gary doesn't care that he's paying
and then you have
$2 extra a gallon. right?
And then you're going to have a Bastille event on all the centers of power in America, where the people who are now on 40% food stamps are going to become 60 or 65% of America on food stamps.
No,
But
because they'll send them. But David, what happens typically in these resets? You know what they do? They start wars so that the people who have nothing to lose because they can't afford their gas bill are like, okay, yeah, I can take this military job and go there, and then they send them away, right? That's what
So
happens.
I've been saying this for several years. This is a rerun of 1929. America was still in a depression when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor. Let's not go into the theory that they knew that Pearl Harbor was going to happen. And they needed to switch their economy to 40% of a war economy.
Yeah, of course. It to happen, David.
Yes. So this is exactly, this is what the Russians are saying as well. We thought the focus was in on a primarily a continental war in Europe, where a conventional warfare would lead off, and the objective is, I think Alexander Dugin voiced this back in 2023, was that a continental war would take place in Europe, and that America would do a deal with Russia on the Arctic oil, which is more oil up there than Iran and Saudi put together, by the way. And that they would share the trillions. We're already seeing rumors of that. Yeah. So, and they'd walk into Europe with a Marshall Plan 2.0. But bearing in mind, like everything west of Berlin is completely cancerous, to a peace deal in Europe. Everything east of Berlin, everything east of Czech has their head screwed on, because these are the people that grew up under the USSR. But the rest of them are completely oblivious to what's coming down the line.
What I'm looking at more, David, is can they be successful? And the only thing that's going to tell us is can they be successful is, are they able to control the bond rates? Or else it's going to cause a catastrophe. Right?
Well, the Russians believe that they're not going to.
Yeah, I don't think, I'm 80-20 that they're not going to. Right? But let's see what they do with the bonds. I don't know. Bessett is a smart guy. He's not a dummy.
Well, Putin had a meeting with 27 billionaires. This is the first time it's been done since 2004, actually. It was a secretive meeting. There was no notes taken, blah, blah, blah. He put his hand out to say, you guys have made a lot of money here in Russia. Put up your hands. This is something very similar to the shakedown that MBS did in the Four Seasons Hotel back, when was it, 2018? I can't remember, when all that money was 100 billion plus was taken off the guys. Remember, even the guy that owned the Kingdom company, I can't think of it, Waleed, he got shook down for like 12 or 13 billion. But Putin did it. The point I'm saying is, Putin did it a few weeks ago, and that point was raised, that Russia is about, his warning to them was that they should become more patriotic, and that Russia is going to come to a very hard time in the not too distant future. So he was already preparing the elites in Russia for what they are or not. He wanted to say nice things about them. So that's where they're going.
Yeah, my point here is to show that I've gotten pushback for years now when I keep saying they're the same. It doesn't matter. They're two sides of the same coin, the parties, right? They're just a distraction for people. And I get pushed back. I get called a libtard, blah, blah, blah. Biden took out Nord Stream. Under Trump's the one giving money to Ukraine and helping with assisting hitting natural resources of Russia and not hitting military targets. He's cutting off the oil and the LNG. They both do the same thing. There is no difference between the left and the right. They give you some subjects to play around with, like gun rights and abortion and trans, which is the most ridiculous thing to be on the top of the ticket when there's only like 280 kids that get transitioned. Yeah, it's a problem. It's not like a national issue. But yeah, they give you little subjects to entertain you, so you fight. You look at the other side, and you can see what Trump is doing when Trump is screams on his Truth Social, open the effing strait, you lunatic. He doesn't want the strait open. We're closing the strait, right? He doesn't. He wants the LNG to be hit in Qatar, or else he wouldn't have hit South Pass. He would have hit the other ones, right? I'm just showing you that both parties did exactly the same thing, just like when Bush went after Saddam, and then Obama went after Gaddafi. They both have the same agenda. There is no party. There is zero party in America. And that's what I want to make clear, because now you have another example of both presidents taking out LNG routes and supplies and cutting off the supply from the East and making it stronger in the West, which is not a good thing for Americans.
Well, Russia is winning on this as well. I mean, it's the same course of action. Sit, wait, and watch. And Russia, as I said, has doubled its oil revenue. Its partnership with China could not be stronger. I think you'll see a different type of meeting when Putin goes over there now shortly with Xi than what Trump had. We all know that Trump left with his tail between his legs. And, you know, it's completely different for Russia. I mean, I have no doubt what is being said is coming, and that is that war between Russia and various parties in Europe is happening, and that America is going to slap Iran. Whether they do it with ground forces or try with their extra missiles that they don't have and start putting bombers and fighter jets up over Iranian airspace and watch them being taken out by upgraded systems, including the Russian S-400 systems, who the hell knows? But this is 1930s again. This is 100%. Ukraine is the guy with the Ukraine. Zelensky is the Austrian painter for the 2020s. And they now what? I mean, it was a finance minister in Kiev just a few days ago said that this war has cost us $450 million a day, which if you look at it since day one and before, that's over $750 billion has been put into Kiev to take down Russia. It's been a complete waste, has it? Who's benefited from this?
Well,
we now know that over 30% of it went out the back door.
Well, I just looked at one of the statistics you said, and yes, Russia's revenue on oil is up. Volume, though, is down, right? So these attacks are having an effect. They're being offset by the increase in price, though.
The oil at the moment, I read the Gazprom stuff on Rosneft. Right? I don't care about Washington Post and BBC. You go to Gazprom, you go into their site, you go in your browser and it'll translate and it'll show the real figures. For some unknown reason, I'm saying that quite sarcastically, the West doesn't give you those figures. But at this moment, Russia is producing 9.58 million barrels per day, which is up 1.7 million barrels per day more than the middle of November 2025. That's just it. Facts have no feelings. And their revenue is doubled. So Russia can quietly sit in the Kremlin and watch what is happening with the rest of the world. I mean, look at Russia. Per person debt in Russia is $2,200. In America, it's $130,000. I know you print the money, but you're broke. And the world knows you're broke. And it's hanging on by a thread. And that's why Xi don't give a damn. That's why China doesn't care. India is now in a state. But there's going to be a huge void coming. And this is what has been said by economists in Russia. If you look at the head of the central bank, she is putting out the warnings in Moscow. She is saying that we could have stagflation. Could. They do put the warnings out so people don't feel too confident. This is just one of the things that Russians have done since Tsar Nicholas I. You know, they always, they don't look with their chest beaten. They take time stuff and they work them. So it's a different narrative. In Western Europe, we couldn't understand that. But, you know, they are doing fine. And by the way, just 2 days ago, Thursday, there was a notice put out that Russia is going to take $200 billion in Western assets and nationalize them. So Russia's doing quite bloody well. And when I hear this rubbish that comes out of these fabled societies of Western media saying that, you know, these lovely little video clips that you talk about, Joe, and 270 odd refineries, which is complete. I don't want to curse because I'll get killed by Beatrice, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, we're talking here about Iran, and Iran is simply, you know, being backed by Russia and China. I've said it. I've been demonized over it. I was cursed at and slandered and blah, blah. No, there's not. Russia is not backing Iran. They don't care. They're still enemies. I mean, I think we can all say now that, there's no way that Iran is going to fall, because it's in the vested infrastructural reason that Russia and China make sure it doesn't. It's now secure. But America, I mean, if you believe what you say, that, Trump and his billionaire cohorts are reconstituting America into a continental superpower, then why are they messing around the Middle East? Are they doing it just to make Israel fail and get the leech off their back? Is that the 5D chess that Trump is playing? Is he the Manchurian candidate?
Because that they have high production, and you would need them to keep the production low in order for it to be profitable for the West. Like, don't forget, like, Canada has sand in their oil. Mexico closed down their LNG because it was too expensive, right? Like, that is a problem with the Western oil, is you need higher prices on the barrel of oil in order to be profitable. So in order to do so, they need to reduce, not kill, reduce the production capacity by 20, 25, 30% of the Middle East and Russia in order to be successful. And that's exactly what they've been doing since Biden. Right? Gazprom hit an all-time low in 23. Yes, it's crawling back up. They're desperate to close the pipeline deal with China, which is still not closed. So right now they're capped at their max. Right? But they keep getting these punches, and the Gazprom is only one of them.
You perceive there's punches, but they're not having any effect.
I don't know. We will see. I don't know. I don't know how much effect it's having. I know it's having an effect in the Middle East.
That's the best thing you've said all night. You don't know what effect they're having. I congratulate you for admitting. Well, why did you say it then?
Because we know that there's an effect. We had an effect with Nord Stream for sure. It had to move to China. Gazprom went to an all-time low in 23 because of it. Correct? So I don't know. I don't know what effect directly 272 strikes have, but I guarantee you it's costing them to repair things at the minimum. And right now, Gazprom is capped at the production it can make.
No.
They are. Just like even in Gazprom's own report, it says they're capped.
You just said a minute ago you don't know, and now you're saying
I don't know the damage. I don't know the damage it's causing. There's a difference between the two.
You don't know. You keep on saying you don't know, but you're having a conversation with me.
No, I said I don't know what the damage is that it causes permanently. I don't know that.
And I'm after answering
specific part.
I've just answered you. There's no cause. There's no damage. It's not. It's at 9.58 million barrels. Jesus, so I have to say it 5 times.
Yeah, but David.
There's no but. There's just facts, Joel.
Yeah, the facts are that the volume of LNG exports are down in Russia, not up. The profit is up because of the price of gas. Of gas.
The amount of gas moving is more than what it was 12 months ago, discounting the LNG.
Yeah, that is true. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Okay, so you know that then. That's brilliant.
Yeah,
so can we just summarize it then for the audience? The summary then is as follows. You don't know, I do, and I just said to you that they are up in volume and they're making money. David. And everyone has a smile. Every oligarch who is in Russia that's in the energy industry has a big smile across their face looking to buy another little yacht in northern Italy.
I would be too if I was selling a product for $5 and now I can sell it for 10. I'd be happy too, right?
And Russia with the restriction in Iran. Yeah, I know. And Russia, well, it's not capped.
It is capped. Gazprom said it's capped.
I don't know if do you have 2 people in your head instead of 1? 1 second you're saying you don't know, and now you're saying, but Gazprom says
look,
this.
Don't confuse the audience. What I said I don't know is the damage that their drones are doing on the facilities. That
Russia
part I don't know. The limit of production, I do know.
Russia have projections for increasing oil and gas. The second big oil gas
and they can't close the oil.
They
can't close the pipeline with China. Serbia 2 or whatever it's called. Right?
What are you talking about? They can't close it.
They haven't closed it. They haven't made the deal.
They have made the deal. It's under construction.
maybe now they'll be able to have the funding because of all the profit they're making for selling liquid gas. But
Okay, I'm going to. What the hell, Joe? I thought you were smart. They're building it. It's under construction. Do you want me to get you the videos?
you can show the videos. Do you want to show the fact that that it's now stopped, David, as well?
It's not stopped.
It is stopped. Jesus Christ.
All right. For the audience, we can't go. I said, you said, he said. It's under construction. There's nothing stopped.
No, people can look it up and make up their own minds. I have a article in my timeline. You can look at all the hits that there were. You can look at where production has been cut off.
Who wrote that article? Who wrote the article?
I wrote the article.
Okay, where's your references?
It's all in the article. All the references are in the article.
BBC, CNN, Fox.
There's multiple. Or could they be lying about something? Maybe. But the largest one that really matters is the Middle East.
I thought you were a smarter guy than this.
David,
seriously.
The Middle East.
And I'm not being derogatory to you.
Okay, so
I know, look, for 4.5 years, I've had to listen to Pewter 1, 2, and 3, and 4, to all these idiots that are talking about Russia, and they just spew this vomit out. This diarrhea just pours out of them, and one guy flows into the other guy's ear. He then flows in another guy's ear. It's a Chinese whisper on a scale of stupidity, and I can't blame you. I'm calmly saying to you, I'm not being derogatory to you. You're just ignorant of the truth. And the only way that anyone here can find out anything about Russia is by going to Russia media, the real media, not Moscow Times and these other media outlets that are based in Belgium, London, backed by CIA. Go to the real ones. Go to Russia Today. We all know. Suleiman will have Stanislav here, who's in the oil and gas industry. He will tell the truth, and he's voiced it. Actually, he did a YouTube just yesterday with Scott Ritter. You should go look at it, where he actually discussed this. And as Ritter said, it is causing consternation within Russia that they're watching this happen.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'm glad you admitted that now.
But it's not a physical effect.
Thank you for admitting the truth. Okay.
No, you need to relax there.
And the power of Serbia too has not started construction.
I said it is having an effect, but it's not a physical effect. What they're having it's like a propaganda effect, because the Russians are looking at this going, what the hell is going on here? These sons of bees have come up to our door, or come up to the cave of the Russian bear and poking them with a stick, and they're saying, no, we're hitting, but they're doing absolutely nothing. But the Russian media, the Russian people are saying,
can someone on the panel go and look? Is the power of Serbia 2 currently under construction? Can anyone go look? And please educate the rest of the people listening, because I feel like I'm being gaslit. Construction has never even started. It was supposed to start. They brought all the equipment there, and then it didn't start because they're not getting the funding. China doesn't want to do it as of right now. And you're telling people, no, it's being built. No, it's not.
My God, I give up. I must be having a bad night when I can't argue. Thank you. You're doing the job for Piotr at the moment. So thank you.
This is not what I want to see.
I'm only able to have a good conversation when I have an adversary. I finally realized that.
I think America is not going to be able to accomplish this, but it's going to cause a lot of pain to Americans. And I wanted to show that there is no party. They both do the same thing. But no one here, I think, denies the fact that liquid natural gas and oil has stopped in terms of, not stopped completely, it has reduced greatly. No one denies that here, correct?
In Russia, where? Can you clarify that?
No, I'm not just talking about Russia. This isn't an attack just on Russia. This is the entire East. Do you understand? If you want to move the energy pipe, the energy corridor to the West, you stop it in the East. Russia is a player. They're not the biggest player. The Middle East is. That's why there's so much focus on the Middle East. But now you've seen for the past 2 years under Trump, Ukraine is not trying to attack military facilities in Russia at long range. No, they're using drones to attack natural resources instead. Why? Because it fits the same exact thing that we're doing in the Middle East. So when you have it's not a coincidence when it gets repeated 3 times. That is strategy, not coincidence.
Yes, which I think it will lead to a third world war, because the East is not going to just sit and watch as the US is going to cause this kind of economical devastation on the East. So my thing has always been that this ultimately leads to a third world war, and it's not just going to be Ukraine, Russia, and the Iran, Israel, and the US, Iran, etc. And that probably is an aim to usher in the World Economic Forum. You have nothing and you'll be happy and hungry and all of the rest of it.
But doctor, but I think they're not going to cripple the Middle East. What they want to do is weaken it by 20, 25%, 30%. That's their mission. Why? Because that's not going to cause an uproar. That's going to be like, this is a conflict, although they're targeting things in Iran that they know will then target things in the GCC on purpose, right? So they don't want to do enough, so they turn against America. They're doing 20 to 25% so that America gets a leg up. And it's not just happenstance that America this year became the largest LNG exporter in the world, right? Something America's never been able to do. I mean, they just broke a record. And people are saying this isn't tied, and it's because of World Economic Forum and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not.
But does that lower the gas prices for the average American, or lower the cost of food for the average American?
No, it increases it because you're going to have less oil. Eventually it'll go down, but can you save the bond rates, which is going to affect millions of Americans? And I don't think they can. I think that's where the Achilles heel is, but we'll see.
I feel like a lot of the propositions about this war and why Ukraine and Russia and why not Iran and the GCC, etc. Right? We kind of like, if you're thinking it's just to weaken the Middle East, was this the only way they could do that? Maybe know that they've always wanted to go after Iran. There is some ideological reasons for that.
Yeah, Israel for sure always wanted to go against them.
Right. But like, okay, but the ultimate goal cannot be, if they know that they will also devastate the middle class in the US, right? And if there is like a global sort of elite Epstein class situation, then if we look at it from a broader perspective, and we look at it from, so to say, a 30,000-foot view, etc., then it can't just be about the US selling more gas and oil. It's got to be about breaking the economy, ushering the fourth industrial revolution, which Klaus Schwab wrote a book on, and also that the sort of wars and the wars to come, etc., was even something that was discussed amongst certain communities even during COVID. And even before the Ukraine war happened, people in certain spaces that I was a part of, we did say there were predictions of wars and, news of war and, this and that. And then before you know it, Ukraine war started. And that
anytime there's an increase in inflation, wars happen every single time in history. If you get double-digit inflation, wars break out. Always.
But isn't it an orchestration, right?
It could be. That part I don't know.
Yeah, the bankers, look at, the banking system, like basically the Bank of International Settlement, all the central banks, etc., that are basically in those, Council of Foreign Relations, Bilderberg Group, or Economic Forum, and then obviously the most recent sort of move, the tech oligarchs, etc. And look at all the data centers. I mean, I brought up the data centers months ago, and now everybody's talking about it. And why are we having those? Like 40,000 acres in Utah, and it's like, so if we look at it from a broader perspective, then all the little details that we are dialoguing about and debating about kind of become secondary. And so I think it would be more about what they're trying to usher in. Let's not forget about the oligarchs, the technocrats, the World Economic Forum people, and the
But Dr.
bankers.
Tusa, when you say World Economic Forum, all that is, it's like the Soho House for the presidents of the world. That's all it is. The World Economic Forum isn't making any decisions, but it allows Xi to meet with Trump or certain deals to be made with certain presidents. That's what it is. It's not the World Economic Forum that's making decisions. They have zero power.
They have
Right.
educational, they have educational sort of construct for the next future leaders of the world, aka that guy in Canada, a bunch of other politicians. But it's not as simple as, okay, they're just putting the presidents. Well, presidents are going to follow certain policies and are going to usher in policies. It's not just that they're going to put in a president. I mean, look at Trump and what he promised, but what he's delivering. It's completely in line with the ushering of the fourth industrial revolution. And you won't look at the middle class across Europe. And obviously in the Middle East, they just devastate the people by bombing them. But look at the West, you look at the South American countries, North America, etc. The middle class is vanishing pretty much. And
Yeah, it's been happening for years.
right,
But,
but I
but,
think
but think
it's
of
just
Trump. I used to get pushback. I used to get pushback on this every time I say it. But in first world countries, okay, Trump performed the worst out of any leader during COVID. He had the highest deaths per capita of any first world country, right? He was the worst at dealing with COVID. That could be for a reason. I mean, you let people in with COVID into New York and into California without checking them, without having anything, while there was a pandemic already happening and multiple people dying in Italy. That shows to me he didn't care, or he wanted it to spread. Who knows? Because this sets everything off, right? It sets off the high inflation. The high inflation sets off wars. Wars set off restructuring, right?
right, yeah. So therefore, I think this war is not just about Iran, and the U.S. and Israel and the UK and Russia. It's about completely changing the landscape of how economical systems function, because the way that they established the economical system internationally, it was never meant to be sustainable. It was based on lies. Even the academia, the kind of economy that they teach, I never understood. I'm like, what are we talking about here? This doesn't make sense, right? The Wall Street, all of that, the stock market, it's all based on a lie. But they knew that the system of banking and the system of economy that they have established, and every time it required a war to make it make sense and make the rich richer and the poor poorer, they need another war. And this time, though, it's a bit different. It's a bit different. Just because now we're talking about energy, and energy is everything, and the AI situation that requires so much energy, the data centers, etc. And when they're telling Lake, what is that? Lake Tahoe residents that the power company, the energy company over there is like, we cannot provide you within a few months electricity. You have to find a different source. I mean, all of this, if you connect the dots, we're looking at something completely different than Russia, versus America, and Iran versus like, yeah. But
It's
then,
all connected. They're doing the
yeah,
same thing in all these countries, right? And that's what I mean. That's not a coincidence when 3 times in a row you're doing exactly the same thing, which is hitting fuel supply lines, and while you're ramping up yours, and you're taking countries where you're saying it's the 51st state, and you wanted to do the same thing with Canada, which is also the same thing, where you want to control the world's supply in order to save the U.S. Dollar dominance. Um, and in order to do that, you're going to have to usher in stable coins, because then you no longer have a neutral currency, and you're going to need a neutral currency, which it used to be, because other countries could affect the price of the dollar, like Saudi Arabia and things like that. And now it's all in the control under one country. So what's going to happen? They're going to have stables everywhere.
Right,
Um,
right. I mean, the digital money and cashless society, all of that was always in the plan. But here is what I see as different and more daunting, right? Okay, during the First World War and the Second, and before that, all the wars, however, whatever you want to call it, at least the human had that opportunity or the chance to go and buy a farm somewhere and grow their own food and dug their own wells and get the water out and have whatever food and independence from the system, right? But right now, when all of the farmlands are being taken away, a lot of the farmlands are owned by Bill Gates, number one in the US. Number two,
you
when,
know that's not true though. You know that's a rumor.
okay, I
He
mean,
does own a lot,
that's not the
but
main point of my discussion. So, okay, maybe not.
there's way
But when
bigger
all the,
landowners than Bill Gates. I'm just saying.
okay,
Constantly,
okay.
it's Bill Gates is the number one land. No, he's not. Not even close.
Okay, so I mean, he doesn't belong in the farming industry. Let's just say that. There is a reason why he is getting involved in that. Because now look at all the farmlands, right? There is a fire somewhere, and suddenly there are like data centers. They're taking over farmlands, right? These data companies. And when there is not water for the farmers, right? When they're spraying everything with glyphosate, and then their seeds that are organic no longer grow because they're basically pollinated by the other farms that are GMO. So when you cannot grow food as independent farmers anymore, yeah. So I'm just saying, um, there is so much more to it than, okay, 25% less oil being produced by Russia or this and that. Now, would I like to see Russia have the Ukrainians have it? For sure. But I feel like maybe Russia knows something that we're not looking at. And maybe they're trying to postpone that Third World War a little bit longer. I mean, because let's say if Russia really goes after Ukraine, like the way we think that, okay, they're hitting your oil industry, etc. Why aren't you going after Ukraine? I mean, that's a valid question, I hope, you know? And if Russia is not doing that, we have to think a little bit out of the box and not so much in these academic economical scenarios that we've been taught at universities. Is there something beyond that maybe only Beatrix and I can see, in terms of you won't own nothing and you'll be happy, the World Economic Forum, etc. And yeah, and so when I look at everything and when I see the dots and connect the dots, then I'm suddenly looking at like a, sort of a situation or a paradigm that is beyond what we think the world order of things were. Now, the only way out of it is by these kind of spaces where we come in and we share this kind of information, and we do not conform, and we do not comply, and yeah.
Thanks, Dr. Atusa.
My
I really
pleasure.
enjoyed that discussion between David and Jonah. So what I took away from that was Jonah was crying that people call him libtard, and David compared him to Piotr. Those are the two key takeaways, and then there was a lot of talking in between. So it's good discussion.
Way
Good
over our
discussion.
head, Joe. Joe, do not think that this is an issue for you.
I know.
Yeah,
I know. Of course, that's all she took from it.
exactly.
That's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Typical Beatrix.
Yeah, or typical chick, but I'll let you frame that however you want, Joe. Guys, retweet the space, reshare the space. I want to welcome Simon on stage. Simon, hope you're doing well. How are you?
Hey everybody.
Doing good?
Yeah, good.
And just
Um,
go ahead, Simon.
go for
Just
it.
want to welcome Andy as well. Andy and Shiva. Sorry, guys, Simon, you can say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, World War III can't happen because if China wants to cut off the US military, then it just stops rare earth minerals. Job done. So the only alternative is a managed transition, which is what we're witnessing. You can't have World War III. it's not real. It's not a real possibility today. There can only be a negotiated outcome, diplomacy, and changing the order. And everybody in power knows that. Is not something like, I mean, we're plebs without intelligence. And sorry, I don't mean intelligence. We don't have access to intelligence agencies, but it's still pretty obvious to figure out. So they've got intelligence agencies, and they all know it. And yeah, we are witnessing a radical change from the whole world being powered by oil to the whole world being powered by LNG. And in order to that LNG and turning everything digital is AI, and there's not enough energy in the world to power what they want to do with AI and robotics. And so everybody needs to adjust to that reality. And countries are engaging in a new industrial revolution to build out this AI surveillance state and control grid. It involves stable coins. It involves data centers. It involves robotics. It involves artificial intelligence. It involves social credit scores. It involves digital everything, digital assets. And it's not even really a secret. It's communicated to us in World Economic Forum meetings.
Can I just add,
Legislation
Simon,
is changing.
for
Yeah.
people don't know why we need LNG and why that's happening? Is a lot of people think, because I get comments like this all the time, that renewable energy is a European construct. And it's not. If you look at how much investment goes into renewable energy in America, it's extremely high. Although, yes, we talk about fossil fuel more often. Um, it is, everyone knows it's far better to have renewable energy. That's why America invests so much in renewable energy, even under Trump. Okay. And in order to make the transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy, you need LNG. That is the transition energy, because you cannot turn everyone onto renewable and provide like a fail safe for if things like if it's dark for 5 days or whatever it may be. That's going to be LNG. That's not going to be petroleum. Petroleum is the least effective at getting this. It was the easiest to extract, but now that you have renewable, you move towards there because then it winds up being cheaper, and that's why they're doing it.
Absolutely. And so if you're a country and you're in a cartel like OPEC, or you're part of the companies from previous empires, like the French, the British, and the Americans, with Chevron, Exxon, Total, Shell, and the Big Seven and the others, that all coordinate, that all have deep state, that all have the ability to manufacture a war, that all have CIA, Mossad, MI6, Five Eyes. They all have state capture. They all have the ability to get their government to coordinate on such moves. They set a plan and they negotiate and they say, right, we'll take a 30% hit here, but what are you going to give to us? And these plans are, they're not done at the presidential level because they take decades. And they portfolio manage in a 20 to 30 year plan while politicians are trying to figure out how to get votes. And in trying to figure out how to get votes, they need to raise money. And ask for a tenner, they go to the lobbies and ask for significant funds. And when they pay when those lobbies pay them, they say, "Here's what we want, and we want to have that contract, and we want to get that contract." And he'll say, "Well, this company wants to be involved. Are you going to pay me more?" And they're going to say, "Well, are you more useful to me in order to get me my vote? Are you going to put this bill forward?" And then they say, "Well, you gain popularity with the people. Pretend that you're going to help them, but write my bill." And this is how it works. And each country has their own hierarchical power structure, and you have to appease the power structure that exists. But no one country is able to dominate. There was this brief moment from the fall of the Soviet Union to the peak of American hegemonic power. But ever since then, America utilized war not to win, not to dominate, but to hand over resources to private corporate power. And that private corporate power is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And they're able to influence more and more and more and more and more. And governments are more and more subordinate. And we're just starting to see the impact. And they've hit a point where they just need to control all people through algorithm. And they built all the technology. Every bit of technological innovation, it wasn't created by entrepreneurs. It was created by the Pentagon. It was created by CIA venture capital funds. It was created by DARPA. And if you complied with power, you got to play. You got to play entrepreneur. Palantir is an example. XAI is X is an example. And if you're Jack Dorsey and you don't comply with power, then you get regime changed. And JP Morgan says, I'll allow you to borrow against your Tesla stock and you can buy X, but make sure you use it for us. And then we'll allow you to continue playing entrepreneur, but keep delivering for power. Like it's not that complicated. I don't think it is anyway. But yeah, we're transitioning to LNG. And where does all that renewable energy? That requires ginormous manufacturing bases that China's built. And so America will say, right, we'll get this amount of LNG. We'll make Europe and LNG dependent. Those countries will then, BlackRock will say, right, we'll put significant capital and allocate significant capital into renewable energy. We'll come up with a ESG narrative. The deep state can blow up Nord Stream pipeline, and we can rewrite all the maps. We'll get Israel to do this. We'll see if we can coax out Russia to do that. We'll have a word with, Iranian oil to do this. Chevron will do this. Exxon will do that, and there'll be resistance against it. So the plan can go off kilter. But directionally, we'll head in this direction. And anyone that's not on board with that plan, regime change them. Because transnational capital said in the plan, and if you're not on board, you're gone. And if Maduro wasn't on board, get rid of him. That's how I think these things are working right now.
Thanks for that, Simon. Appreciate your thoughts on. Andy, thanks for joining us. Anything you want to jump in on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you have Trump doing his normal bluster on Truth Social, and yeah, I mean, yeah, he can threaten to invade Iran all he wants. There's never going to be a full-scale invasion of Iran because we know that's physically impossible between their terrain and the ability to destroy any potential invading force with drones and missiles well before it's stacked up. So it's just he's clearly lashing out and desperate, trying to basically galvanize his supporters who actually believe that sending 1 million men to Iran is in any way, shape, or form feasible, even though it's ridiculous because that's the whole reason we elected Trump is to not do that. And it's just ridiculous that so many people still actually think that that's a good idea because Trump said to do it. So it's just obviously we know it's a cult. And yeah, the bond markets are still up, and Trump hasn't been able to find a way to get those rates below 5 and 4.5%. So that's going to really start causing issues soon. And then going back to X, yeah, obviously it's not a full free speech platform, but I'd say, I mean, I wasn't on it in the old days, but I'd say it's objectively maybe better than it was. I'm not sure because I think a lot of this stuff might have been honestly censored under the old regime. And certainly a lot of the people on the right wing that are pushing against Trump now wouldn't have a platform under Dorsey because they would have been considered far right extremists and would have never been allowed. So Elon obviously is far from perfect, but I'd say he's definitely an upgrade because someone like Fuentes and people of that ilk would not have the ability to be pushing back under Dorsey. They were banned, and obviously it's not just Fuentes; it was so many other accounts as well. But that's one of the bigger ones. So that this is definitely it's an upgrade, but obviously we deserve even better. We deserve true free speech, not a somewhat free speech where people like Solomon, Fuentes, Jake Shields can't get a check mark because they speak up too much against Israel and Zionism. So yeah, but I'd say yes, and the oil markets have kind of remained a bit stagnant. I don't think there's anything Trump can do anymore to get that down. He can't say, "Oh, we're almost at a deal," and get Brent to drop to 90 anymore, because the reality is there's no more tankers coming out of the Middle East. So the supply just is cut off at this point, and the markets have realized that. It's still artificially suppressed. It should be a lot higher, but people are predicting that's going to pick up at the end of May with the summer driving season. And Trump's desperate. He's begging states to get rid of their state gas tax temporarily to lower prices, and he wants to cut the federal gas tax, but he needs Congress for that, and Congress is not necessarily on board because that would deplete the highway trust fund, and obviously our highways are already not in great shape, and having even less money is not really an option for them. So Trump doesn't have any levers left to pull.
Andy, you know what? It's interesting you mentioned Dorsey, right? I was on X under Dorsey long before Elon bought it. I was on Spaces because Spaces started under Dorsey when he first started Spaces. I was on Spaces when he first started them. And yeah, I know that because of the American government and because of what Trump had done, J6 and everything else, there was that censorship, but it was a much better place. I'm not joking. It was a much better place. I always did my Palestine spaces from day one, and I used to do all my Palestine posts from day one. The Zio influence wasn't on it. So it wasn't like, I think it's right to say that Dorsey wasn't complying. Doc and I got shadow banned, both of us, for the Mossad space under Elon Musk. And we were doing spaces before Elon Musk, like Doc was doing spaces on Palestine with me as well before Elon Musk bought it over. But Suleiman sent me something today, right, which freaked me out. So listen to this. This is it's a 20-second clip. Well, actually, it's a bit longer, but about 50 seconds. But it's Ashley St. Clair, the influencer who had his child on X, and she's speaking in this clip, right? Listen, about Elon.
It was becoming more clear to me that he was coming more from like a eugenic standpoint. Also, while I'm pregnant, he's like telling me that we need to use surrogates if we want to have like a legion of children before the apocalypse or before the Civil War in America. And I'm just not comfortable with.
And then she talks about like surrogacy and everything else. So he's telling her before the Civil War happens in America, they've got to have a lot of kids. And I'm thinking, this is freaking me out because this is what he was saying. So, you know, the whole Doge thing.
He says apocalypse and Civil War production.
Yeah, exactly. The apocalypse or Civil War. And the whole Doge thing and everything else, Jack Dorsey just was not on that vibe. You know, he just kind of had a company, had an app, he'd built it up from scratch. And he was quite low-key about it. He wasn't on here. He wasn't, you know, it wasn't about him. It was just about people using his app. And I remember when Elon first bought it, he did all that. I'm buying it, I'm not buying it, pulling out, legal case, trying to drop the share prices. And then as soon as he bought it, I'd be on spaces at night and he'd just be randomly sat on a space. It wasn't even like he'd just jump on, typing away, chatting rubbish and just typing away and stuff. And then he went to, I think it was some Formula One thing or something. And the Emiratis were there. And I think this was very, very early on after he bought it. And one of the journalists published a picture of him at that event. And in fact, it was the Emirati, the kind of royals speaking to him. And the body language looked like they were pretty like heated up. And the journalist said, oh, they're a journalist and influencer on here, I'm saying. Said that, oh, he was getting a bit of talking to say get off Spaces. He was literally on Spaces every night, and it wasn't like. And do you know what people started doing after that? Because he'd just jump on any space, random space, and just start talking and rambling, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, Elon, you're so great! Nobody speak, just listen to him." And then what they do is so then this thing happened at Formula One, and the influencer was like, "Oh, I overheard it," and you can probably still find that photo that they were having a word with him, saying, "You know what, you've got to spend less time just chatting nonsense at night on Spaces," and I'm paraphrasing here, "and you've better start working on giving us our returns." This is before blue tick was out for everybody. It was just the VIPs, government officials, etc., had blue ticks. So only government officials and like prime ministers had blue ticks, and there was no other concept. Everybody else was the same on the platform. There was no monetization or anything like that. And they said, you better start giving us our return. So he stopped going to Spaces. Like literally, that conversation was leaked. Some people took it with a pinch of salt. But interestingly, he didn't go on nighttime Spaces after that. The guy who actually reported that, his account was gone. Like literally within 24 hours, poof, gone. And then people started doing these spaces where they'd like nobody speak. I don't know if you remember this, Suleiman, but nobody speak until Elon Musk joins was the title. And then to just sit there for 3 hours and nobody was allowed to speak, hoping and waiting for Elon to join. Sometimes he wouldn't. So it's a completely different environment, Andy. And then obviously the whole Trump thing and supporting Trump and jumping around and the whole involvement in politics and then the whole Doge thing and, all of that happened. That was not Jack Dorsey. Whether you like the app under him or not, it was not his scene at all. He was not on that.
Beatrix, what about that whole do you remember that whole Elon Trump Epstein argument? Like, what was that? What do you think that was all about?
Do you know, funny, when he was he did a tweet a few days ago when he was on Air Force One saying, "I'm on Air Force One going to Beijing with Trump," or whatever, or going to Beijing for the summit. And I thought at that time that the whole time there'd been inclusion, and I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't turn up with some eye makeup into the White House to show that they'd had an argument, because he needed to have an end to the Doge, right? They'd done whatever they wanted to do with Doge, and he needed to have a focus. They needed to kind of divert people. Because remember, when he went in to
Take
do
all the
Doge,
demographic data per zip code, which is highly, highly, highly valuable for targeting elections.
yeah, do you know what? I would go with that, Jonah, because the thing is, do you remember when he went in with Doge? He was like every day we were getting ridiculous sums, like we've just saved 150 billion to the taxpayer today, and the next day it was like we've just saved 50 billion to the taxpayer.
It was
And I'm
never even
seeing,
that high, Beatrice. It was never. I think the biggest it was 1.2 billion on one line item. Everything else was like we saved 20 million here, which means nothing. It's like you saving $3 on like your monthly budget of coffee. Right? It was ridiculous. The
but
thing they
receipts, right?
really fought for was the IRS did not want to give up their data because they were trying to get the data by the name and by the social security number. And what they were able to get approved was they can get it by zip code, right? So now they can look at a zip code, see what your income is. They could assume what your pain points are by that, and then they can use that data. And then what he told people was, yeah, we used AI to flush through it to save all this money, blah blah blah. But now we deleted it. Well, that's not how AI works. AI is like a child. You teach it something, you can't just go in and dissect it and remove data. That's just not how it works. Once an AI learns something, it learns something, period. You can't remove it. So they still have access to that data.
The pennies just dropped then. So this is voting rigging. This is Palantir and X having
And
full control over elections.
and Simon, what happened? I think they had a real fight, because what happened right after that fight? He gave Trump his biggest threat, knowing that he has the election data, right? He said, I'm going to start my own party. Remember? The America Party.
I remember that, yeah. What do you do you think it was WWE or real?
No, I think he honestly thought about it. I think he has too much on his plate to be starting a party. But I'm sure Trump knows, or those that need to know that he has the data. Same thing. Remember when what was it? DeSantis.
It could have been a genuine op, right? Like maybe Palantir was going to get the data and X wanted the data, and
Could have,
there was genuinely
could,
pulling levers in order to make sure the elections are either controlled by Palantir or X. That could be
could
a
have been.
genuine thing, right?
If you remember, I forget the name of the company from UK that was involved in the DeSantis primary, and DeSantis beat Trump in one location, and Trump went and got them. What are they called again? Do you remember that company?
Which one's
They have
that?
a documentary on it.
I forget the
What,
name.
Cambridge
Yeah,
Analytica?
Cambridge Analytica.
Yeah,
So all that Cambridge Analytica did was before they basically got that data, but they got that data by creating little games people would play. Like, do you want to find out which princess you are, Disney? And then people would go and be like, oh yeah, let me go answer these 20 questions about my life so I can see that I'm more Ariel than I am Rapunzel, right? Or Cinderella. And people were giving away their data. And that this is exactly what Cambridge Analytica did. So they were doing that by zip code so they can target, because once you can target that precisely, you literally can make anyone choose whatever you want them to choose. You inundate their world with what, this is your major pain point, and this is the guy that's going to solve it. And that's all you got to keep doing. And they're going to vote for that guy. And that's all Cambridge Analytica did. What they did was not illegal. The only thing that I think was seen as illegal because of election rules were all these little games they let people play for a poll. So they collected data on people before targeting them. And I think that's the part that was illegal for them. But now with Doge, you don't have to do that. You already have the data.
Yeah, and you got social security numbers, and he's pushing the whole voter fraud thing, which is, digital ID, digital elections. Like, it's so, the whole thing, man, it's so insincere. Nothing they say is what they mean. Like, it's such a deceptive game. Like, you've almost hit this. You know how, like, with Israel, it was every accusation is a confession. Like, that's the same with all of this. Like,
Yeah, and people will never know the wiser, because this technology won't be used on the major elections. It'll be used in the primaries in case some independent wants to run and really has the back of the people. They can make sure that he can't run. And then by the time there's an election between the left and the right, it does not matter to the powers to be which one of them wins, because that's why there's many donors that get to both parties, because they're both aligned with what the mission is. It is the primaries that is the problem. That's why Bernie Sanders was a problem. That's why that Ross Perot was a problem. They were pushing against the system because Bernie Sanders wanted to get rid of Citizens United. That would have taken their power away. So then all of a sudden, Hillary Clinton invents this thing called super delegates and gets him thrown out. He 100% was going to win over Hillary Clinton, and all the polls showed he would have won over Trump as well, because he really, really did create a movement. And so, in order to that to never happen again, they created Doge.
and isn't it
But
funny that both of the winners of this game, like whether it's Peter Thiel or Elon, like they both worked together and both came from apartheid South Africa, and who did
And
the
they're
who
both
did
part of the PayPal
yeah, and
mafia.
who else? The Genius Act, which was David Sachs, which was PayPal mafia. Like, if you can't see that everything's fake after all of this in terms of manufactured, but yeah, no, I mean, just think about it. America's interfered in pretty much every election around the world. Do you think they wouldn't do it to their own elections? I think that's almost deluded to think that they don't rig their own elections. And it doesn't really matter anyway. You just need a mechanism for subordinating everybody. Whoever gets in Congress, whoever gets in Senate, you have the deep state in order to blackmail judicial. And all you need to do is distract everyone with thinking, oh, here's a new savior. Why don't you get behind that savior? And then they grift and get a load of election funding. They introduce bills like Thomas Massey did, like End the Fed, knowing that it's never going to happen. But you get the popular vote and a bunch of people get behind it, knowing that it's not going to make any difference whatsoever. That creates an escape valve to distract people. Everyone keeps arguing over Republican, Democrats, and Trump and Biden. And meanwhile, no one's looking at who's actually in charge. Um, the real power play is X going to get the data, or is Palantir going to get the data? And guess what? Their number one shareholders is the same transnational capital. It's BlackRock, it's State Street, it's Vanguard, it's the Gulf Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, it's the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, and it's the Singapore Sovereign Wealth Fund, and it's the Japanese central bank and the Dutch not the Dutch central bank, sorry, the Swiss central bank. They've all got the same shareholders.
Yeah, that's why I've been saying forever, Simon, that I'm not here to try to fix the government or get people to go against the government or state that it's us versus the people versus them, because I don't think that's going to happen. There's too many control levers, everything else. I always say you have to worry about yourself, and I always say learn what bearer assets are, get bearer assets. I now am adding real estate to the list that it is not a bearer asset. Because I believe that the bonds are going to kill a lot of real estate. That's why I said the other day that a lot of millionaires are going to be broke and they have no idea. They have no idea yet. And the only thing I see is gold, Bitcoin, and alternative assets. But for alternative assets, you better know what you're doing. Like watches, wines, classic cars, art, things like that. Those are bearer assets. Those will appreciate. Real estate, I think, is about to take a downturn.
Yeah, you
I
have to
just
With
understand.
these
disagree.
Yeah,
bond prices.
Sorry, I disagree with that. Trust the oligarchs to tell everybody that, look, you guys can't do nothing. Don't come after the oligarchs. Let those in power and those in wealth stay in power and wealth. Like, it's not going to work on us, Joe. We, the people, we, the working class, will
I'm
stand
far
up
from an
against your
oligarch.
oppression. If you guys are in the citadel, we're going to break that citadel down. We're telling you right now, Joe. These guys are like, guess
but
what,
that
guys? Listen, you can't change anything. You're all deficient. Be selfish. Just look out for yourself. That's it. It's over. Like, no, Joe, it's never over. It's never over until you take all 8
But
billion of us
but
out.
but Solomon, but here's the thing: is if you look out for yourself, you do. If we get everyone to look out for themselves, you break the system.
agree.
To
No,
understand, like if
honestly,
everyone,
Joey, this is such an important point, right? They know that as long as you think that you can vote your way and you can pick someone new and the next politician's going to do it, they know that they're already lining it up. It's Thomas Massey. He's your next savior. And as long as you're like, okay, I said that I was out of this game if Trump can't make a difference, but maybe, just maybe, all right, maybe I'll just vote for that one and I'll get behind that. And maybe I'll just do another 2 years and another 4 years. And as long as they can keep you doing that, the real power, the real financial power, their entire system breaks if everyone stopped paying their mortgages and didn't pay their rent. That's what they don't want you realizing. That's where the entire system becomes subordinate
But
to
Joe, but
all those
Simon,
people.
even that, how it's not an individual doing it. Like, if you didn't, you Simon Dixon, I know you haven't got a mortgage, but like you Simon Dixon did not pay your mortgage, you'd be in trouble. If me Suleiman Ahmed didn't pay my mortgage, I'd be in trouble. The only way what you're saying works is if collectively Simon Dixon, Suleiman Ahmed, Joe Santos, and the rest of us all did not pay our mortgage. So that again demonstrates the point. It's not about every man for themselves. It's not the oligarchs are too powerful, you can't take them out. That's just an example of how the collective, the people can work together to actually break the
You're
system.
you're you're absolutely right. And the people do have the power only once you can correctly identify the real enemy, which is why they put you a Trump in there and they put you a Biden in there and they put all of these fake enemies in there, and they get you, it's the Muslims, it's the communists, it's the immigrants, it's the radical left, it's the far rights, it's the billionaires, it's the all of that. You come up with your
Where it is
favorite
the
flavor.
where Simon, it is the millionaires, billions. Let's be clear on that, but do continue.
Well, no, I know lots of millionaires and billionaires that opt out of the system, and they made it with Bitcoin. They break out of the system and they're able to make a difference.
Yeah,
Um,
they're the
So,
minority, but when you talk
is
about
when
these
your wealth
corporations, what are they?
is when your wealth is connected to the status quo that you get very few people breaking from that, right? They don't mind. They don't mind a bunch of broke people that are all whinging. They don't care about those. They don't care about really rich people that are entangled in the system because they know they won't break against their own self interest. You know what they really care about? People with significant influence, significant power, and significant wealth that are willing to talk against the system and break from the system and then coordinate with the people that actually collectively, if we correctly identify the enemy, we can all break it. And they don't want you knowing who the enemy is. They always need to create a boogie monster. You know, it's the terrorists, it's the communists, it's we're coming after the drug warlords or whatever. Like once you realize that it is the financial institutions that are at the top of this chain, then you realize, well, what breaks the financial institutions is actually debt. The if everyone stopped paying their debt and stopped paying their rent and stopped paying their mortgage, and everyone coordinated like an old, trade union, and everyone correctly identified the enemy, we would break the system overnight, and they would have to listen to that union. But it requires real coordination, not fractured people thinking that all we need to do is put Thomas Massey in and we're done, or all we need to.
Yeah, I agree with what you said there, largely speaking. The only point is obviously the people in power are in power for a variety of reasons because of obviously they've gained that power through finances, through all of these things. And so when you said, oh, like these billionaires, some good ones. Yeah, there'll be some good ones, but overarchingly, the reason these people are in the position they are is because they've basically either they're lucky because they did it through crypto and is like whatever, but generally speaking, they've done it through leveraging the system, manipulating the situation, keeping themselves wealthier, keeping everybody else down, and then separate to that, not doing the bit for society and almost becoming like selfish and self-accumulate. It's like greed. It's like huge greed, and there's a reason why in all religions greed is considered one of the evil sins. Now it's not wrong to be wealthy, of course. It's dumb to say me don't want to be wealthy. Like the amount of difference you can make by having wealth is a good thing, but I do think that, like for example Joe gives of like the Citadel and not being in it, there's a reason why the ones in the Citadel is going to be based on wealth, right? So anyway, coming back to the point, I agree with what you said. So it does require the people to work together. I would just be a bit apprehensive if it was like an extremely wealthy person telling you what to do, because he could be part of or they could be part of the manipulation. Because they want to keep themselves in that wealth position or in that position of power. But overall, yeah, I agree with you. I do believe people, and that's why I jumped in, because I don't want people to think from this space that everyone, like, you can't do anything, you just got to sit around, like, you can't make a difference. The rich are going to stay rich, the powerful are going to stay
So,
powerful, you're going to stay weak, you have no power, you have no autonomy. The people have more
but
autonomy.
but
The
but
only reason
Suleiman,
the people
how
have
do
less
you?
power is because of a psychological constraint that's put on them. The people are more in number than those in power. Anytime the people can overthrow any system, because the volume of people can overthrow. The reason controls are put in place is because of a control and psychological barrier, and we're all willing to follow it. We're willing to follow the rules, of course, but not when
But
you
that's even why
neighbors out.
that's even why monarchies are easier, right? Because you know who's in charge. But with democracies, you have a covert power, and everyone debates around who's in charge. And so, like, if it was overthrow the monarchy, like, at least you know what you're coming after and who you're coming after. But every single person on this app has a different
Hey,
perception of who's actually in
but
charge in the West.
but Simon, even overthrowing a monarchy, we know what happened. The only reason why monarchies got overthrown like in England was because of the Black Plague, and people moved away from the cities. And once people moved away from the cities, the monarchy no longer had power over them, and that's what broke the
but
monarchy,
are they really
right?
overthrown?
With
Are they really overthrown?
Well, they don't have the power they
Yes,
used to, for sure. I'm not saying they don't
it's
have some.
autocracy in the West, no doubt about.
Yeah.
Institutional structure is way more powerful than yeah.
Right. So grabbing what the typical American thing is, this might have to get kinetic. I don't even think if all 300 million Americans picked up their guns, that's going to solve this problem. There's a way easier problem. Get off the dollar system. That breaks the
That's
system,
100%
right?
correct. And Suleiman, you're right. I mean, look, most wealthy people made their wealth in the system, so they have to preserve the system. It's why if you go to one of those, look, do you remember when Elon first took over? What was the first thing that happened? Well, he co-opted the largest space, which was Mario. Then he started doing regime change operations. He went for Venezuela, he went for Brazil, he went for UK, and
He failed
always,
on all them though.
he failed on all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so then you got the Department of Government Efficiency, and with Doge, you get the data, and you get the real algorithmic manipulation, and that gave him power to negotiate with other higher powers, which then got him X, or whatever the, not quite the order, but and now he's going to IPO SpaceX, and all of it is about algorithmic power. That's what everyone's fighting for right now: the data and algorithmic power.
I
Because
just sorry, Simon, go on.
carry on.
No, I just want to say, this Doge thing, right? Do you remember he had all these court cases or federal suits against him or something? I just think I know what Jonah you said about electoral data, um, voting data. I get that, but I think it was more than that. They didn't just go in for that. He had zero security clearance for one. And then he had a lot of these federal cases against him and his companies. What happened to them? No one's heard anything. And I'm telling you now, if I was an American, even if I didn't need it, I'd be saying to all Americans, freaking lobby the government because they promised all of you checks. Do you remember? Doge came out and said, oh, we're going to be sending everybody a check. We've managed to get so many savings. They're all going to get a check in the post. What happened to that? I think time will tell it was the biggest scam. It wasn't just to do with voter registration data. There was something deep that's gone on there. But sorry, Simon, back to you. It really concerns
It
me.
had everything. Do you remember? Because they were releasing, like, the AI was releasing on the website in real time, and it had things like it revealed 695 million invested in ISIS training camps and things like that. So it had all the USAID data as well, all of the National Endowment of Democracy, all.
USID for that, yeah.
Yeah, it had all of the color revolution data. It had all of the who are you bribing in each country, all the installation of dictators. Imagine if you had all the data behind USAID and National Endowment of Democracy. That's the entire apparatus that propped up the dollar. That's every type of intelligence agency operation there. And I just find it curious and interesting, and I haven't really thought through it. What that public debate with Trump and Trump and Elon around the Epstein files really was. He got all that data from Doge, and then he did a public fight around the Epstein files. Then we got the 50% release. It's almost like trying to figure out, like, who's winning in this hierarchical play. And then Palantir's been getting all the contracts. Like, it feels like at the end of this, the world is going to be 10 companies and a bunch of, the CCP and a bunch of monarch structures. And there will be 30 institutions that control all the capital and all the data at the end of this. And governments will just be an absolute like an absolute joke if you haven't figured out they're a joke already.
And they were both in the Epstein files, Simon, right? Which is why I think that Elon wouldn't come out and say, oh, he's not releasing the Epstein files because he's in them. Because Elon was in them as well. Now, if he had access to the data, he would have known that. Which is why I think that it was almost like, you know, sometimes if you break the bad news in a certain way in the middle of a fight, when the real stuff comes out, people are already over the initial shock of it. I don't know. I think this, and it might just be what it presented itself to be a real fight and everything else. But I think my questioning comes from a place because I don't trust either of them. And I just think that anything they do does not meet the eye. There's always something behind it. And that's why I'm always questioning what that was about.
Yeah. And they're both subordinate to financial institutions. Like they both have significant leveraged wealth. Their wealth could be wiped out overnight through the derivatives market. And what did Trump do? He immediately started building crypto scams so that he could end up with as much Bitcoin as possible in a Bitcoin mining company with his. And, you know, you look back, you were talking about it yesterday, the whole George Bush stuff. Like, if you look back at like the Bush family's oil interests and how they were manufactured, you can tie everything. Every president gets into power because they have a very specific agenda that they need to achieve, and it ain't got nothing to do with the Americans other than dumping more debt on you.
Yeah, Andy, jump in, love.
Yeah, I mean, with Massey, like, obviously, I don't think there's one magical savior that's going to fix everything. But, like, yeah, obviously, Massey needs to win that race on Tuesday. And, yeah, obviously, him winning his House race doesn't fix everything. But the way they're going all out at him with the fake allegations, they're making up fake TV, AI generated ads about him. They've spent well over $10 million against him. Like, that's really the kind of the final straw. Like, if Massey loses that race, like, like any slim hope we had of a political solution is extinguished at this point. Because if an incumbent can't win on an America First platform, then what chance would we even have against Vance and Rubio in a primary where they'd have $500 million from Miriam Adelson, Peter Thiel, all of those people behind them? So this is kind of really the final straw to even see if there's still any hope of a political solution. And we'll know Tuesday night, I guess, whether even there's a possibility of having a political solution. But yeah, it's just a very dire state of affairs that we literally only have like one representative that's really actually on the Republican side doing the stuff that Trump was supposed to do and then didn't. So it's just that's how dire affairs has gotten. And young people need to show up and start voting in greater numbers because the boomers show up at the highest rate in elections, and until that shift changes, then our elections are going to be controlled by boomers, despite their views maybe not being the majority position, like 60% of this country being opposed to Israel, for example. But if young people don't show up, then the views of the minority can rule over the majority if people stay home.
You know, there used to be an MP in England, right? Not for London, outside of London. And I'm not going to name who it is, but he hardly ever visited his constituency, right? His wife didn't really like the area that he became member of parliament for. So he'd never go up there. But what he'd do is he'd write these early day motions to Parliament all the time, which is like, it's just like thoughts, and we'd like you to kind of put this in. Like it's just tabling a motion for discussion. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't change anything. But he'd write all these early day motions and they'd go up on his website. And every time his constituents criticized him to say, you've never even shown your face in the last 6 weeks, he'd be like, oh, but look, I put in so many early day motions, you know, and I'm having these conversations. And they never went anywhere, these early day motions. Thomas Massey reminds me of that a little bit. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be a solution anti. I mean, I've got other concerns about him personally, but I won't go in there because I know a lot of people are hopeful about him. And I've always been transparent that I've got concerns about him. It's not a new thing, like from before. But I just don't think that he's going to change. He's going to be able to change anything in America. He's not going to be a solution, Andy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and can I jump in on that real quick, Bandy, Beatrice? They on that, Andy, I know it's hard, and we've talked about this before, but in the 1980s, my mother was a very strong Republican. Man, she voted in every single election. She was always out there, got to vote, 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 vote. And she knew I did not vote. I refused to participate in the clown show. But she kept saying, no, listen, honey, we got to pray. We got to bring in godly men of God. We're going to bring in Newt Gingrich and Reagan's now. We're going to clean it up. We're going to drain the swamp. This language has been going on for years and years and years. And I said, Mom, wake up. Well, before she died in about 5 years ago, she finally woke up. And she said, man, you were right, honey. It really didn't change, did it? It was really, I said, yep, you got it. So I know people have to hold on to the illusion delusion. I know that's where they get their hope. We can't give up. I've heard Dear Cyrus say that. No, we can't just give up. We got to go vote. We're going to change the system. No, we're not going to change the system. We're in this evil fallen world, but we're not of it. Over and over again, I hear Simon and Suleiman and Beatrice. We're all on the same sheet of music. Simon makes it clear. And Joa makes it very clear. Unless you get out of the matrix, having your wealth protected, in digital currency, you're out of the matrix, and you put it in your I use cold wallet storage, right? And you get out of the system, you're never gonna. They want you to keep trying to change it, and I know it really upsets people, but I had to make it clear on that.
Well, it's very clever. Like, if you bring someone that you know can't change anything, then you want a release valve in order to keep people believing. It's a very clever strategy, right? You go against the whole grain, you go against everything, and then you write a bunch of bills that you know have got zero chance of actually getting implemented. But you get the popularity of those on the fringe movements believing that, okay, I'll get behind that, and then you raise a bunch of money, you get elected, and then you find out how real power works anyway. That you'll either be pushed out into insignificance, or you conform to your lobbies in order to get real power. And if you comply, you go up, and then eventually you're in the system, and now you're in preservation of system mode, and that's what Epstein and these different things, which I think there's thousands of them, were all about. So it's architectural, it's systemic. There's not a person that's I don't think anyway. But in the meantime, no one's really talking about how the real power dynamic and how to come after them, and how to actually be able to exit the system. Instead, everyone's on preservation of the system and continuing the delusion, and they're still in the matrix. Okay, it's very clever. It's very sophisticated, and it really it paints a lovely story, but it's a lie. The whole thing's a damn lie.
I am a little bit skeptical about like Bitcoin is the solution to independence though. Because in that dystopian scenario that we're talking about, that you could only save yourself if you're independent from the banking system, financial system, etc., through something like Bitcoin. If you're in that mindset of everybody for themselves and save yourself, Bitcoin, okay, so don't you think, and this is a genuine question, don't you think that the systems that want to be, or the powers that be, or whatever you want to call it, will find a mechanism to make sure that that 10% that has been able to secure their independence from the financial system won't be able to trade, won't be able to buy goods with their bitcoins, etc. So that is why, I do agree with Sully that the solution is not every individual become independent. I mean, okay, that's a part of it, but that's not the whole solution. That the solution is getting organized, not comply, and raise the critical mass to a point that we can actually change the system to a better, more fair, more just system. And I'm not saying that that's by elections necessarily, but I'm saying, but by what we're doing here, by what, like, for example, I can speak for myself, right? What I did during COVID, right? Because that's my niche, right? And health, etc. And I spoke to as many people. I went to as many spaces that people genuinely wanted to learn, what is it really like, is it, deadly, la la la, should I get the vaccine, not, and I believe we're in that, sort of walking on that edge in the history of humanity, where at this point in this historical moment we have a choice. Is it everybody for themselves and become a millionaire or billionaire through Bitcoin? And I also want to get an example of someone who in this system became a billionaire and actually was a real philanthropist, like someone that actually made a difference at a scale that is notable, right? And so, yeah, I am skeptical about Bitcoin. And I'm not saying it's not possible. I just don't see how you could live in a world that they can find you because of AI, tracing and tracking, digital technology, ID, etc. How can you do that as an individual on your own when
You have to break the power system, and the power system is the belief in the dollar. That is the power system. That is the grid. And it is it's backed by debt and everyone paying their debt. If you don't pay your debt and everybody does it on a coordinated scale, the entire power grid breaks. The entire power grid. And when the power grid breaks, they just need somebody that is in charge of decentralized communities to negotiate with and coordinate with. And that's what they never want us to do. Never. They always want us pointing at the fake enemy. And they'll make many fake enemies.
yes, so that requires us or people who are independent to have communities, not individual.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, no, but who's the most useful to the community, right? Everyone brings something to the table. But somebody with autonomous financial independence from the financial system is more useful, is one of the utilities to the community. Everyone brings their own thing. But the financial rails are the control grids. Look at anyone. When you wipe out their ability to transact and ability to store wealth, or just inflate away their wealth, or load them up with debt to the point where they can say whatever the hell they want, but you don't care. Then they don't care. But someone with autonomous, independent wealth in a community with lots of people that have lots of skills and a decentralized structure where there are so many of those communities, you know, it's an incredibly overwhelming thing to think about. But think of the opportunity today. I personally, the reason I like that Trump is in charge is because I'm pretty sure that his incentive structure is to break the empire and to break the dollar. And I don't mean break the dollar as in 5D chess. I mean split the world up into multipolarity. A multipolarity is better, and competition is better than uniparty. Now we do have a massive centralizing force, this technocratic Orwellian nightmare, but we also have a decentralizing force against it. We've already seen that experiment. And yeah, I mean, the problem. Yeah,
Suleiman, can I enter? I need to go, but I have something I need help. I need to ask people for advice. Hello, can I enter?
yeah, go for it. I think Solomon's on a break. Can you hear me? Go for it.
I'm back. I'm back. Go ahead, jump in, Halab. What were you saying?
Yeah, sorry, mate. Just from Australia here. It's a question for Simon. Just going back to the debt-based system that you're talking about and breaking it, don't you feel that that will be a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy?
Disconnected. Gentlemen, do you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can hear you. Something weird's going
Okay,
on. So.
thank you. I apologize. I have right now a major project, a house that generates electricity 4 to 5 times more than it utilizes from sun and wind. I have patents, and right now I am putting together. I put this information here so that
Yeah. Egypt, I'm sorry, but we can't allow you to promote any personal business or.
Yeah, he broke the law of physics. The thing with
That's a double mute, Jonah.
yeah, I'm sorry. Someone isn't going to come into space to announce they broke the law of physics. Where they get more energy than the energy they get out.
Hey, Joe, if I could just jump in. I'm from Australia, and I just had a question for Simon, if that's okay. Simon, do you have time?
Yeah, if it's on topic.
Yeah, great. Yeah, it's on topic. It's about the debt-based system that we were referring to. I feel like it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy that if we all exit the debt-based system, that will create a collapse in the system. And what real solution would we have if we actually did enact that?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying how you break the system. Now, what follows is chaos, probably. And so you
Yeah,
have to make the decision. Would you rather go down the existing path, or would you rather actually break the system? But to me, playing in the delusion of thinking that this system's going to change by playing by their rules, it is
yeah,
just a waste of time. You might as well just focus on building your own wealth and figuring out what parallel systems you can build. But if you actually want to break the system, then actually break the system.
yeah. Do you think that that's a better solution to do that right now and starting this year for us collectively? Or would
Nah,
it be
wait.
better
You
to
gotta
wait?
wait till I get more debt. I gotta go get a house on a loan. I don't have no debt, so you guys gotta wait till I rack up my debt.
All you got to do is why every time the stock market cracks and you move to actual capitalism where markets and pricing happens, they the last thing they want is for that to happen. So they QE it, they fed it. So their aim is your answer. And how do they create money? By you taking on more debt. And so, you know, that's the mechanism. That's the governor. You work for Uncle Debt. You work for usury.
Yeah.
That's the power.
But collectively, I guess for humanity, is it a better system that we have right now, or are we still being controlled? That's, I guess, the most important question for us to figure out and answer. Because if the answer is, well, it's pretty good now and capitalism is the best system that we currently have, then why
This
would we?
isn't capitalism. This is definitely not capitalism allows for stock market crashes. Right now, stock market crashes are illegal.
And is that because of QE you're saying that, or?
Absolutely. Every time the stock market crashes, they print up some money to make sure that those with debt end up with more debt, and those with assets end up with assets worth more.
Okay. So it seems like we actually just really need to crash and burn in order to create a new system. But I guess with 8 billion people on this planet, what system could possibly work other than what we currently have? Not to quote, Winston Churchill, that, democracy is sort of the best system that we have, or capitalism is. But I just find it really difficult to
Well, it's
understand.
it's beyond it's beyond the scope of this, but
Yeah.
everyone that's the next problem. Everyone's got a different vision of what what a sustainable economy looks like. I do know that money doesn't have to be debt, and money is debt at the moment, and that is by design, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Do you think that they would actually want us to fulfill this prophecy ourselves and
No,
we popped out, or do you think they want to maintain the status quo?
they want to maintain the status quo. They're kicking ass. They're ending up. It's monopoly. There's a fewer and fewer people that are ending up with all the assets. The strategy is working to perfection.
Yeah. So it looks like it's going to be almost an impossible task until the system itself collapses through the universal hand, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think that's why more and more people are turning to God, because they're realizing the invisible hand is not the market; it's a higher power. I think.
Yeah. No, that's a fair call as well. It's an interesting topic. So you think that Trump's goal is to maintain the status quo now, or you think he actually wants it to crash? I was a bit confused
No,
as
I've
to
always thought Trump's goal is to switch the world to multipolarity and weaken the dollar as world reserve currency, and
well, that,
push the world to China and BRICS.
well, I was going to say that's a good segue based on the discussions that happened earlier this week with Trump and Xi. So what's your view on that sort of outcome?
Yeah, the rulers of the world were all in Shanghai, and it's the Chinese government structure
Yeah.
that powers transnational capital and the sovereign wealth fund through the purchase of energy, and a bunch of technical and financial oligarchs that control most governments. And anyone that's got their own resources and energy has got a sovereign wealth fund and has partnered with transnational capital. And I think they're acting as a unit right now, and they're resetting the world. And they were there not to negotiate anything, to do a quick check-in on progress.
Yeah. Do you feel that the old guard is still in control, or do you feel that the PayPal mafia, let's call them the grey side now, are taking over, and that they're the ones that have the real power, be it Palantir or SpaceX, etc.
The old power is the financial industrial complex. The new power is the technical industrial complex. And right now, the financial industrial complex controls the military industrial complex and technical industrial complex. If one day you break the financial system, the technical bros will take over.
Yeah.
Okay,
Do you think they're working together?
You know what is going on here is like a flipping. It's not like 20 questions, right? Gigi, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. Can we go back to the topic of Russia for a moment? I have a
Yeah, let's
question
do it. Let's do it.
for David. I have a question for David Z. David, you mentioned, well, are you there, David?
David, are you there?
Oh, guess not.
What was your question about Russia?
My question is, David mentioned that Russia, I believe he mentioned that Russia will not be ready for a war for 2 years. They're planning for 2 years from now, so that
What
they
with
can
whom?
build up their
With
they can
Europe?
build up their resources, their weapons. But doesn't that also allow NATO to build up their weapons and stuff? Like, it seems like they're weak right now. So why not now? Why wait 2 years to allow them also to get stronger? That's the part I'm missing.
Well, the European production of weapons isn't great. They largely do rely, not completely, obviously, you've got the French military industrial complex.
But still, that allows them time to get stronger as well. Right now they're a little bit, I mean, it seems that they're a little bit weak.
All right, cool. So if you want to answer your own question, it's fine.
Oh,
Okay,
no, go
cool.
ahead and answer
No,
it.
that's
Go
fine.
ahead.
Let's leave it. Andy, you got
Can
the
you
Thomas.
answer the question, please? Thanks.
Andy, you've got the what you call it again? They got the Massey race coming tomorrow. What's your thoughts on the way it's gonna go?
It's on Tuesday. I think Massey should be able to pull it out, but I mean, they've spent so much money against him, and they've also ran these like fake AI ads accusing him of literally sleeping with AOC and Elon Omar. And unfortunately, you have boomers out there that actually, when they see an AI ad, they think it's real, and like so, it's gonna be tough. But I think he will win. But it's gonna be a knockout, drag out fight until election day. But I do think he will win because I do think there is a lot of organic support on the ground for him, and I haven't seen like any content for his opponent Ed Gelrain. It's all been an anti-Massey campaign from MAGA. There hasn't been anything to actually prop up this other candidate. Like I have yet to see him on my timeline. None of the MAGA influencers are posting him. They're just saying, Massey's a traitor, vote for this other guy. So they're not. And typically, when you run that negative campaign that hey, this person is this or that, or Massey's an anti-Semite, or any of these ridiculous labels they use to smear him, that type of negative campaign typically fails. Just like in 2024, when Kamala Harris ran the Trump is Hitler and women are going to have no rights if Trump wins, that's just isn't like that. But Kamala then never articulated a positive vision for herself, which is why she lost. And I think that's the same mistake that Ed Gelrain's making against Massey. There you haven't articulated anything for him.
You know, when these guys were just speaking, one of the things that a thought came in my mind is if someone like Massey was to win, but then everybody else was to lose, like Dan Bilzerian was to lose, Anthony Aguilera was to lose, Greg Stoker was to lose, all these guys were to lose. Essentially, we're back at the status quo. I know everyone's like, oh, we made Massey win, but we're back at the status quo. And I guess I'm not answering the question, I'm asking the question, is that a good thing? Or would it be better if someone like Massey did lose and everyone realized the entire system is rigged and, they go
I think
against
if
the
Massey
system?
loses, I think so many people would just get blackpilled and honestly give up. Like I think people would just give up and even stop engaging. Like they just quit and log off. So I think a lot of people would just give up entirely if Massey lost. Like they'd just be so blackpilled. They'd be like, it's not worth it. We're done. There's no point in fighting the Zionist machine. It can't be beaten. We quit.
Interesting. So you think people would actually give up?
Not everyone, but some people would, I think. So some people definitely would, I think. I think a lot of people view Massey as like the last representative that actually is kind of actually fighting for us. And if he loses, they'd be like, what's the point then?
Okay, that's a good point.
I'm not giving up. I'll still be here on Wednesday, regardless of the outcome. But
But Andy, if would you ever think of if you gave up on politics, would you say you'd give up altogether, or you'd start thinking about another way to defeat the system without politics?
I mean, I still think there's going to be even a bigger shift against the current system just because we do have an imminent recession and people are going to, I think, wake up and shift more towards the America First camp away from MAGA. So if 2028 also goes sideways, then I think it really is a lost cause. Like let's say this war drags on, this drags us into a recession, and people still just nominate JD Vance or Rubio after all of that, then it's like, okay. But I think we still haven't even seen nearly the full extent of this awakening yet, just because it hasn't gotten bad enough. It needs to get bad enough for people to really wake up.
I think that's what Suleiman was asking. Correct me if I'm wrong, Suleiman. That like, do they let these people through so that you have hope and you keep engaging, but nothing that will make a difference anyway? So maybe the general essence of the conversation is maybe the thing they don't want you to do is give up on politics, because then you'd realize there's actual other solutions.
I mean, I think it depends on what you mean by politics. And I think what you mean is specifically possibly voting. Because if you mean politics in toto, then I obviously don't agree, because I think being politically aware and being aware of what's going on and those who control you and rule you is extremely important in order to fight against them to understand where they're coming from, what they're doing, how they're doing these things. But if you mean specifically voting, then to be honest, you guys know my position from so many years ago when people used to attack me when I used to say that I don't believe any election is real. I don't believe any election anywhere in the world is real, not just the United States of America, not just UK or the Africa or Asia. Like there's no real election in my view. They choose who they want to put in power, and those people be in power. And in terms of the people mentioned, like I do think that they would allow a random person to be a Congress, like one congressman won't make a huge difference. These type of things. But then I think they do have a certain requirement. So like what I meant by this was when I'm looking at what it seems like what's going to happen in this election, I think Thomas Massey's going to win his seat, highly likely. And I think all the others are going to lose their seats, unfortunately. And we're back at the status quo. Like that's where we're now. Do you know what I mean? So has there been any real change? But people will feel like there's a change because Massey won. Now I understand that they've spent 20 million, so there is change from their side. But in total, or as a holistic thing, there isn't change. And so I think I'm concerned about the way people are thinking. I feel like they think that they've kind of put in their heads in the basket that if Massey wins, like, that's a huge impact. And I don't think it's as big an impact as people think, other than we want APAC to lose. So wanting APAC to lose is important because I think psychologically, Andy's right, actually thinking about it. That it's like you do need a win in order to rejuvenate the movement, make them believe that you can have more of an impact. So in that aspect, you do need it. But if Dhabi's the only win, I think overall it's a huge loss. So someone like Dan Bilzerian, he is someone I think is very genuine. I know him. If he was to win, I know he's not sold out. I think he's got, they can be real change. There's someone like Anthony Aguilar, same thing. Greg Stoker, literally the nicest guy I know, the most genuine guy He's willing to stand by his principles. He's always standing up for the people. He could have had a very amazing life. He could have had a very, he could have worked for the CIA if he wanted to. You know what I mean? He could have done whatever he wanted to do, but he realized that what he was doing was really wrong. So I do think that there's a lot of candidates out there who are genuinely good people and genuinely want to make a difference. But let's see what happens. I think looking at the way, because I have been following the internal races quite a bit, it is seeming like what's going to happen is we're going to be back at the status quo, and that's concerning for me.
Exactly. I'm disappointed that we didn't have way more of these candidates step up. Like, it shouldn't just be a handful. We should have one in every race on both sides.
Well, the reason we don't have it is because people support Zionist candidates. So, like, for example, there's a well-known left-wing political commentator by the name of Hassan Abi. And if you look at him, he's been great about Gaza. Massive props. He's been great about the Iran conflict. Massive props. But oh crap. Sorry, I had something ready and then I took it off. Okay, and he's been great about all those things. And even though he's been great about those things, who is he bolstering up? Many of the candidates he's bolstering up as Zionist candidates, and the reason he's doing it is because he's playing this whole Democrat Republican political game. And so they essentially take you away and bring you back into the same spot again. So these are examples of why I don't know why people keep botting this space. Like someone's just added it and I don't want to add the thing. It's about to end, but it's annoying. It's like we've got 1,400 real people and then someone's added 1,000. It's just really annoying. But anyway, coming back to it. So that's an example of how people's kind of waking up or awakening is being controlled and manipulated. Andy.
Yeah, exactly. It is a problem that I think people see the system and like good people just don't even bother running because they say like, well, it's not really they don't think it's possible to win. So a lot of people haven't even bothered really stepping in. And that's what I think we need to do with candidate recruitment in 2028. Like, let's say we run one in every single district and make them spend a couple $1 million per district and both parties defending. And if, let's say, only 10 out of 435 win in 2028, that is still a huge shift from where we're at now, because I mean that's kind of, it's like if we can make them spend $1 billion+ in primaries defending against a slate of anti-Zionist candidates come 28, that would be massive.
Yeah. So guys, on the YouTube, I don't know that even loaded yet. Guys, on the YouTube, just so you're aware, wait, that looks worse. Look better in the mirror. Okay. Anyway, guys, on the YouTube, we are moving across to the other channel. It's pinned in the nest. Sorry, it pinned in the YouTube comments. So if everyone can come across, I am going to be ending this stream and starting the other one in a minute or so. So we are going to be ending this stream. So everyone, 20 minutes as well, just so you're aware. Come across. So I'm just going to end that now, guys. So come across. That would be awesome. I'm going to end this pinned in the nest. So just watch out for that. I'm just doing it now. End X after about 15-20 minutes as well, just so you're aware. So I'm just